Some crimes don't begin with violence. They begin with silence. And tonight you're about to hear a story that proves the most dangerous warning is the one everyone ignores. Wherever you are watching this from, whether it's late at night, early morning, or somewhere in between, if you're listening alone, this story will stay with you longer than you expect. This is not just a crime thriller story. This is a psychological suspense mystery based on hidden truths, ignored warnings, and the terrifying cost of silence. In this dark crime story, nothing happens loudly. No forced doors, no obvious violence, no clear suspect. Just people disappearing, clues being overlooked, and a town slowly realizing that the danger was never outside. It was in what they chose not to see. If you enjoy true crime stories, psychological thrillers, dark mystery narration, and crime stories for late-night listening, then stay with me, because this story doesn't rush. It waits, and by the time the truth finally reveals itself, it may already be too late. And before we go, tell us in the comments, what time is it for you right now, and where are you listening from? Every sign was there. Every warning was ignored. A chilling crime story that shook a quiet American town at midnight. It was one of those towns people trusted without realizing why. Maple Creek, Colorado. A place where nights were silent enough to hear the wind moving through empty streets. Where porch lights stayed on not because people were afraid, but because they had never needed to be. Winter had settled early that year. Snow pressed against rooftops like a heavy secret. The kind of cold that didn't just freeze roads but slowed thoughts, muted instincts, and made silence feel normal. At 11:47 p.m., Emily Carter left her apartment. She didn't take a coat. That detail wouldn't matter at first. In fact, no detail would matter at first because nothing looked wrong. Her phone stayed on the kitchen counter face down. Keys were gone. Lights were off. The door was locked from the outside. To anyone else, it looked like a woman stepping out for a moment. To anyone trained to notice absence, it looked like the beginning of something irreversible. But no one noticed that night. Not the neighbors watching television. Not the driver who passed her street without slowing. Not the town that had learned, slowly and comfortably, that nothing bad ever really happened here. And by morning, the snow had erased everything. Footprints, tire marks, any sign that Emily Carter had ever stood outside her building at all. At 9:12 a.m., her sister called the Maple Creek Police Department. Her voice was calm, almost apologetic. "Hi, I'm sorry to bother you. My sister didn't show up for work. She always calls, always." The dispatcher typed without urgency. "Adults disappear sometimes, phones die, schedules change." The report was logged. A patrol unit was assigned. Nothing about the call triggered alarms. And that was the first mistake. Detective Aaron Cole stood by the window when the file landed on his desk. 43 years old, divorced, no children. The kind of man who had learned to live inside quiet. Maple Creek wasn't where ambitious detectives came to build careers. It was where they came to slow down, to finish their years without surprises. Aaron had transferred here after a case in Denver that never fully closed. Officially, it was resolved. Emotionally, it never was. He read the missing person report once, then again. Something about the timing bothered him. Not because it was unusual, but because it was clean. Too clean. No witnesses, no digital trail, no emotional explosion. Disappearances that stayed quiet tended to stay that way for a reason. Still, he didn't say that out loud. He'd learned what happened to detectives who pushed too hard, without proof. They got labeled difficult, obsessive, unstable. So Aaron did what he was trained to do. He followed procedure. Emily's apartment smelled like detergent and stale heat. Everything was in place. Bed made, laptop closed, coffee mug washed and turned upside down in the drying rack. The absence felt intentional, like someone had stepped out of their life carefully, making sure nothing was left behind to explain why. Aaron stood in the doorway longer than necessary. "You think she ran?" Officer Daniel Brooks asked from behind him. Brooks was young, good intentions, still believed people disappeared because they wanted to. Aaron didn't answer immediately. "People don't leave coats in winter," he said finally. Brooks shrugged. Maybe she didn't plan on being gone long. That sentence lingered. Didn't plan on being gone long. Aaron wrote it down. He didn't know why. Emily's co-workers described her the same way. Reliable, quiet, predictable. No enemies, no drama. Predictable people didn't vanish without disruption. They vanished when something disrupted them. But disruption wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was subtle. Sometimes it was invisible until it wasn't. Aaron asked the same questions again and again. Did she seem afraid? Did she mention anyone unusual? Did she act differently? The answers never changed. No, not really. Nothing comes to mind. The town had no memory of danger. That didn't mean danger wasn't there. It meant the town wasn't used to seeing it. That night, Aaron couldn't sleep. The wind battered his windows, rattling something loose inside his chest. He replayed the timeline. Emily leaves at 11:47 p.m. No phone, no coat, no witnesses. And yet, someone had locked the door from the outside. That detail stayed with him, not because it proved anything, but because it felt deliberate. People don't lock doors behind themselves unless they expect to return, or unless they're being careful. Aaron stared at the ceiling. Careful about what? By the third day, the town began to whisper. Not loudly, just enough. A missing woman became a topic of conversation at grocery stores, at gas stations, in church parking lots. Fear didn't arrive all at once. It seeped in slowly like cold air through a cracked window. The police department reassured the public. No signs of foul play. No reason to panic. Aaron stood behind the podium during the briefing. He watched faces instead of listening to his own department speak. Some people looked worried. Some looked curious. One man looked relieved. Aaron noticed him because relief didn't belong there, but he didn't know why yet. So he said nothing. So on the fourth night, snow fell harder than before. Visibility dropped. Roads closed. The kind of night where people stayed indoors. The kind of night where silence felt heavier. At 2:18 a.m., a call came in from the north side of town. An abandoned car, engine cold, hazard lights off, driver's door closed. The license plate belonged to Emily Carter. Aaron arrived before the tow truck. Snow piled against the tires. The car hadn't been forced open. No damage, no blood, nothing dramatic, and yet it felt wrong. Cars don't stop themselves. Someone had chosen that spot. Someone had decided where it would rest. Aaron stood there long after everyone else stepped back. The cold bit into his hands. This wasn't disappearance anymore. This was placement. But placement for what purpose? He couldn't tell. Inside the glove compartment, there was nothing unusual. Insurance papers, receipts. But under the driver's seat, a folded piece of paper. No writing, just a crease. As if it had been opened and closed many times. Aaron stared at it longer than necessary. Blank things weren't always empty. Sometimes they were waiting. He slipped it into an evidence bag. Didn't mention it to anyone. Not yet. The town reacted fast to the car. Faster than it had reacted to Emily herself, because objects felt safer than people. A car could be explained. A woman disappearing could not. Aaron noticed how quickly officials leaned toward comfort. Probably car trouble. Maybe she got a ride. Could have been confused. Confused. Another word people used when they didn't want to say afraid. Aaron nodded in meetings, took notes, kept his doubts quiet. He'd learned silence was sometimes the only way to stay close to the truth. And that night he called his ex-wife. He hadn't planned to. He just needed to hear a voice that remembered him differently. "You still chasing ghosts?" she asked softly. "No," he said. That wasn't entirely true. Ghosts were easier. Ghosts didn't leave unanswered questions, people did. The following morning, Emily's sister found something. A voicemail, sent at 11:43 p.m., 4 minutes before Emily vanished. Aaron listened to it 3 times, static, breathing, then Emily's voice, low, controlled. "I think I made a mistake," she said. A pause, not long enough to explain, too long to ignore. Then the line went dead. No panic, no names, no sounds of struggle, just a sentence. A sentence that meant nothing on its own, and everything later. Aaron closed his eyes. That was the first real warning, and no one in Maple Creek knew how to read it yet. He filed the voicemail, marked it non-urgent, because that was what the system required, because urgency without clarity was dangerous, because pushing too hard, too soon, was how cases went sideways. Aaron sat alone in his office after everyone left. Snow tapped against the window like fingers. He looked at the blank paper from the car, the voicemail transcript, the timeline, nothing connected, which meant everything might. He felt it then, not fear, not certainty, something worse, the sense that whatever had taken Emily wasn't finished, and that the town's silence was doing exactly what it was meant to do. He stayed there longer than he should have. The office lights hummed softly above him, a dull, mechanical sound that felt louder in the quiet. Aaron had learned something over the years. When a case refused to explain itself early, it wasn't because it had no story. It was because the story was patient, and patience, he knew, was dangerous. By the 5th day, Maple Creek had adjusted. People still talked about Emily Carter, but with less urgency. Concern softened into speculation. Speculation softened into routine. That was how towns survived fear. They absorbed it slowly until it no longer felt sharp. Aaron noticed it everywhere. At the diner where conversations paused when he walked in, then resumed seconds later, lighter than before. At the gas station where the clerk avoided eye contact as if not seeing the problem would shrink it. At the elementary school parking lot where parents tightened their grips on their children's hands but didn't say why. Fear without language always leaked into behavior. That's how Aaron knew it was growing. He returned to Emily's apartment alone. No uniform, no notepad, just memory. He stood in the kitchen, letting the silence settle again. Silence always revealed things people missed. He imagined Emily there, phone in hand, listening to something that changed her mind. A message, a realization, a warning. People didn't say I made a mistake unless they'd already crossed a line. But what line? And when? Aaron. And checked the locks again. The door, the windows, everything intact, which meant whatever happened didn't force its way in or out. That narrowed possibilities, but not enough. In the bedroom, he noticed something new, or maybe it had always been there. A framed photograph on the nightstand. Emily standing beside a man. The image wasn't intimate, just familiar. Like two people who knew each other well enough to stand close, but not close enough to explain why. Aaron turned the frame over. No writing, No date, nothing to anchor it in time. He slipped the photo back where it was. Sometimes moving things too soon erased context. He wasn't ready to lose that yet. At the station, Aaron finally brought the blank paper into evidence. The technician looked confused. "Sir, there's nothing on this." "I know," Aaron said. "But was there something on it before?" The tech hesitated. Hard to say. No ink residue, no impressions. Aaron nodded, because that answer didn't disprove anything. It only meant whatever had been there had been removed carefully. That thought stayed with him. Careful again. The word returned like an echo. That evening, Aaron received an email. No subject line, no signature, just one sentence. Some warnings only make sense after they're ignored. He stared at the screen. Not because the message explained anything, but because it hadn't been sent anonymously. The address was real, local, someone in Maple Creek. He forwarded it to IT, logged it, didn't respond. Messages like that weren't meant to be answered. They were meant to be noticed, and noticing and was something this town avoided. He drove home slowly. Snow piled high along the sidewalks, turning familiar streets into narrow corridors. At a red light, he saw the same man again, the one from the press, briefing, standing outside a closed pharmacy, hands in his pockets, watching traffic pass as if waiting for something to happen. Their eyes met briefly. The man looked away first. Aaron memorized his face, not because he suspected him, but because relief didn't belong anywhere near this case. Sleep didn't come easily that night. Aaron dreamed of doors, opening, closing, locking. Each one led to another. None of them explained where they went. He woke just before dawn, heart heavy, mind unsettled. He checked his phone. No new messages, no updates. Silence again. And silence, he knew, was rarely empty. On day 6, another report came in. Not a disappearance, not a crime, just a complaint. A woman had found her front door unlocked when she woke up. Nothing missing, nothing damaged, just unlocked. The responding officer logged it as accidental. Happened all the time, people forgot. Aaron asked for the address. It was 3 blocks from where Emily's car had been found. That meant nothing, until it didn't. He visited the woman himself. She was older, nervous, apologetic for calling the police at all. "I know it sounds stupid," she said, "but I always lock my door. Always." Aaron listened. People apologized when they were afraid of being dismissed. He asked about the night before. Anything unusual? She shook her head. No, just quiet. Quiet again. Always quiet. Aaron left without conclusions, but he marked the address and the time. Patterns didn't announce themselves. They accumulated. Back at the station, Brooks noticed the change in him. "You're thinking too much about this," Brooks said gently. "Sometimes people just leave." Aaron looked at him. "Sometimes," he said, "but sometimes they're helped." Brooks didn't ask what he meant. He didn't want the answer. Most people didn't. That afternoon, Emily's voicemail was leaked. Not officially. Someone shared it. Within hours, it spread. Social media turned speculation into certainty. Strangers debated her fear, her tone, her words, as if meaning could be pulled from a single sentence without consequence. Aaron watched it unfold helplessly. The message had never been meant for the public. It had been meant as a warning. To herself. Or to someone else. He still didn't know which was worse. By nightfall, snow fell again. Heavier. Relentless. The The town disappeared under white. Aaron stood outside his house listening to the quiet. He felt something closing in, not on him, on Maple Creek, on whatever truth the town was trying to bury. He thought about the email, the unlocked door, the blank paper, the voicemail. None of it connected, and yet it felt coordinated, like pieces laid down in advance, waiting for someone to notice, waiting for someone to fail. He whispered the words out loud. Last warnings don't come twice. The cold swallowed the sound, and somewhere in the town something shifted. Not enough to be seen, not enough to be stopped, just enough to continue. A dark investigation uncovers hidden secrets beneath a silent American community. By the second week, Maple Creek no longer felt quiet. It felt restrained, like a town holding its breath, afraid that exhaling might expose something it had spent years pretending wasn't there. Snowbanks lined the streets like walls, narrowing every road, every choice. Even daylight felt dimmer, filtered through heavy clouds that never fully moved on. Aaron Cole noticed the change before anyone said it out loud. People stopped waving, stopped lingering. Doors closed faster, and when they spoke, their voices stayed low as if sound itself could attract something unwanted. The Carter case was officially still classified as a missing person investigation. Unofficially, it had begun to rot. Aaron felt it in meetings, in the way supervisors avoided his eyes, in the way language softened. Let's not jump to conclusions. Still no evidence of criminal activity. Plenty of adults leave voluntarily. Each sentence was reasonable. Each one felt wrong. Reason had a way of delaying truth until it was too late. Aaron sat across from Emily's sister, Rachel, in a small interview room that smelled faintly of old coffee. Rachel hadn't cried since the first day. That worried him more than tears would have. She wouldn't just disappear, Rachel said quietly. Aaron nodded. People keep telling me she was stressed, Rachel continued. That maybe she needed space. She looked at him then. But stress doesn't erase you. It doesn't make you vanish. Aaron said nothing. He had learned that silence, when placed carefully, invited truth more than questions ever could. Rachel swallowed. There's something else, she said. A pause. She asked me something a few days before she disappeared. What did she ask? Rachel hesitated. If I'd ever felt like someone was watching my life instead of living their own. Aaron didn't react. He didn't lean forward. He didn't write it down immediately. He let the words hang. What did you tell her? He asked. That she was being paranoid. Rachel's voice cracked for the first time. And now I don't know if that was the mistake that got her killed. Aaron felt the weight of the sentence settle into his chest. Mistakes didn't always look like mistakes when they were made. Sometimes they looked like reassurance. Outside, Aaron stood still for a long moment. Emily's voicemail echoed in his mind. I think I made a mistake. 2 people, 2 different conversations, same emotional gravity, but still. No connection. Not yet. The second incident arrived quietly. No headlines, no emergency calls, just a report filed by a maintenance worker at a closed community center. A locked room had been accessed overnight. Nothing stolen, nothing damaged. But something had been moved. A chair. Just one. Turned to face the door. Aaron stared at the report longer than he should have. It was easy to dismiss. Too easy. He drove there alone. The building sat at the edge of town, half buried in snow, lights off, forgotten. Inside, the air was cold and stale. The chair sat exactly where the report described. Centered, intentional, no footprints, no fingerprints, no reason. Aaron walked around it slowly. People didn't move objects without purpose. Even meaningless actions meant something to the person doing them. But what did this mean? And why here? He checked the building's logs. No alarm triggered, no forced entry. Someone had a key or access. That fact lodged itself in his thoughts like ice, because keys meant trust, and trust meant familiarity. At the station, Aaron began reviewing older cases, not disappearances, complaints, minor reports, things that had never gone anywhere, unlocked doors, strange noises, objects misplaced. Individually, they were forgettable. Together, and they formed something uneasy, a rhythm, spacing, timing. He stopped himself. Patterns were seductive. They made chaos feel organized, and organized chaos often led investigators straight into traps. He closed the files. For now. That evening, Brooks caught up with him in the hallway. "You're not sleeping," Brooks said. Aaron didn't deny it. "You think these things are connected?" Aaron considered the question carefully. "I think they want to be," he said. Brooks frowned. "Who's they?" Aaron met his eyes. "I don't know yet." And that uncertainty scared Brooks more than a suspect ever could. The town council requested a briefing, not because they wanted answers, but because they wanted control. Aaron stood at the front of the room watching familiar faces pretend this was just another meeting. "This investigation remains ongoing," the chief said. "There is no verified threat to public safety." Aaron felt something tighten in his jaw. Threats didn't need verification to exist. They only needed time. After the meeting, a woman approached him. Middle-aged, well-dressed, careful smile. "You're the detective," she said. "I am." She hesitated. "I didn't think it mattered before." Aaron waited. "My husband used to volunteer at the community center years ago, and he stopped suddenly. Wouldn't say why." Her voice dropped. "He said it felt like someone was keeping records." Aaron's pulse slowed. "Records of what?" She shook her head. "He never said." That night he wrote her statement down, not because it explained anything, but because it added weight, and weight accumulated. Another email arrived just after midnight. No subject, same address. Some doors aren't meant to be opened, others are meant to stay unlocked. Aaron read it twice, then a third time. He forwarded it, logged it. Again, he didn't respond. Because responses created dialogue. And whoever was sending these messages didn't want dialogue. They wanted observation. Emily's case officially stalled. Unofficially, it deepened. The public grew restless. Talk radio filled the silence with speculation. Fear gained language, and once fear learned to speak, it stopped listening. Aaron avoided the noise. He focused on details, the blank paper, the chair, the voicemail, the unlocked doors. None of them pointed to a person. They pointed to behavior, and behavior told stories long before people did. One night, driving home, Aaron noticed something small. A porch light, flickering, on, off, on again. He passed the house, then slowed. The light went off. He parked across the street. Waited. Minutes passed. The light stayed off. Nothing happened. And yet, he didn't leave. Because something about the timing felt deliberate. After 10 minutes, the light came back on. Steady. As if nothing had happened at all. Aaron drove away. He told himself he was tired, but fatigue didn't explain instinct. At home, he listened to Emily's voicemail again. Slower this time, not for words, for breath, for space, for silence. The pause between mistake and the end of the call. It wasn't panic, it was decision. That realization unsettled him more than fear ever could. The second disappearance happened without announcement. A man this time, late 40s, no criminal history. Left his house for an early morning run, never came back. His wife found his phone on the kitchen counter, door locked behind him. Snow erased everything else. The department scrambled. Connections were denied. Coincidence emphasized. Aaron felt the room tilt. 2 disappearances. Same silence, same absence, same careful removal. And still, no violence, no witnesses, no chaos, just removal. As if people were being edited out of the town. Aaron stood alone in the evidence room late that night. The blank paper lay in front of him, still blank, still waiting. He placed it beside the voicemail transcript, beside the email printouts, beside the complaint reports. They didn't explain each other, but together, they felt intentional. Like pieces meant to be assembled only after something irreversible occurred. He realized then what frightened him most. This wasn't someone hiding. This was someone preparing. He closed the evidence locker, locked it carefully. And for the first time since the case began, Aaron admitted the thought he'd been avoiding. Whatever was happening in Maple Creek wasn't random, wasn't impulsive, and wasn't finished. Aaron didn't go home, not immediately. He walked out into the parking lot where the snow had hardened into uneven ridges and the streetlights threw pale circles across the ground like spotlights that didn't know what to illuminate. He stood beside his car, breathing slowly. In cold air, every breath looked visible. It made him think about absence, about how the town was full of people, and yet somehow it kept losing them without leaving a mark. He heard footsteps behind him. Brooks. "You're still here," Brooks said. Aaron didn't turn. Brooks stopped beside him, hands shoved deep into his jacket pockets. "The chief thinks it's unrelated," Brooks added, like he was delivering a message he didn't believe. Aaron stared into the dark. "And you?" he asked. Brooks hesitated. "I don't know," he said honestly. It doesn't feel like an accident." Aaron nodded, a simple motion, a quiet agreement. They didn't say more, because in small towns words traveled fast, even inside walls. The next morning, Aaron met the missing runner's wife in her kitchen. Her name was Diane Holloway. She had a coffee cup in front of her she hadn't touched. Her hands shook slightly as she pressed her fingers together like she was trying to hold herself in place. "He always leaves the phone behind," she said, almost defensive. "He hates carrying it when he runs." Aaron watched her face. "That's normal for him," he said gently. "Yes." She swallowed hard. "But he never leaves without telling me. Never. Not since my surgery last year." Aaron nodded again. He asked the usual questions. Time, clothing, route. Diane answered, but her eyes kept drifting to the hallway as if she expected her husband to walk back in and end the conversation. "Was anything unusual yesterday?" Aaron asked. Diane's voice dropped. "I woke up at around 3, she said. "I thought I heard something outside." "A sound?" She nodded slowly. Like someone brushed against the front porch railing. Not footsteps, not a door, just a scrape." Aaron made a note. Brooks shifted uncomfortably. Diane looked at both of them. "Do you think he's alive?" she asked. Aaron paused, not because he didn't have an answer, because the truth and comfort rarely lived in the same sentence. "I think we're going to treat this seriously," he said, "and we're going to do everything we can to find him." Diane's face tightened as if she'd heard what wasn't said. Outside, Brooks exhaled. "That's two," he murmured. Aaron didn't correct him. 2 disappearances, 2 locked doors, 2 phones left behind, 2 sets of footprints that never existed because the snow swallowed them whole. If the snow was a witness, it was an accomplice. By midday, Maple Creek's online forums were on fire. People demanded curfews, wanted patrols, wanted names. But the thing about fear was it didn't want truth. It wanted targets. Aaron avoided reading the comments, but they reached him anyway. In grocery stores, in the street, even at the station. A woman stopped him near the front desk. "Detective," she said sharply, voice loud enough for others to hear. "Are you going to admit we've got a serial killer or not?" Brooks tensed. Aaron kept his face neutral. "We're investigating," he said. "That's not an answer," she snapped. "It's the only honest one," Aaron replied. The woman walked away, shaking her head. Brooks leaned closer. "People are starting to panic." Aaron's voice stayed low. "They should have been careful before panic was necessary." Brooks frowned. "What do you mean?" Aaron looked at him. "Nothing," he said. But he didn't believe that. Because the more he looked, the more Maple Creek felt like a place that had practiced ignoring warnings long before Emily vanished. But that night, Mara Venn arrived. Not formally invited, not part of the department. But the chief had signed off anyway because the headlines were getting louder, and pressure made people accept help they would normally reject. Mara was in her late 30s, composed with the kind of calm that didn't come from comfort. It came from having seen too much. She walked into Aaron's office and studied the evidence board without asking permission. 2 disappearances in 10 days, she said, voice quiet. Same weather pattern, similar circumstances. Aaron watched her. "You're a psychologist," he said. "Not a detective." Mara finally turned. "And you're a detective trapped inside a town that wants you to be a receptionist," she replied. Brooks let out a short sound, half laugh, half cough. Aaron didn't smile. He gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit." Mara sat. She didn't take out a notebook. She didn't pull up a laptop. She just looked at him like she was listening to something beneath his words. "What do you want from us?" Aaron asked. Mara's gaze didn't shift. "I want you to stop assuming the absence of violence means the absence of intent," she said. Aaron's jaw tightened. "That's not an assumption," he said. "It's a habit," Mara corrected. A pause. Then she added, "And habits are how people get hurt." Brooks glanced between them like he wasn't sure whether to interrupt. Mara continued calmly. "Whoever is doing this," she said, "is controlling the emotional temperature of the town." Aaron leaned back slightly. "You're saying it's psychological?" "I'm saying it's staged," Mara replied. "And staging isn't about evidence. It's about effect." Aaron didn't argue. Not because he agreed. Because she was speaking the same language his instincts had been whispering. Mara asked to hear the voicemail. Aaron played it once. She listened without expression. Then she asked to hear it again. Slower, he played it again. When it ended, Mara didn't speak right away. She stared at the table. "That pause," she said finally. Aaron felt his shoulders tighten. "The silence?" he asked. Mara nodded. "That silence is not fear," she said. Aaron waited. "It's calculation," Mara added. Brooks shifted. "What does that mean?" Brooks asked. Mara's eyes lifted. "It means she was deciding what not to say," Mara answered. Aaron's stomach twisted. That was exactly what had unsettled him. Mara tapped the table lightly once. A warning doesn't always sound like panic, she said. Sometimes it sounds like restraint. Aaron glanced at the email printouts. The anonymous messages. Mara noticed the direction of his gaze. "Can I see those?" she asked. Aaron slid them across the desk. Mara read them slowly. Her face remained calm, but her eyes sharpened. "These aren't random," she said. Brooks leaned forward. "You think they're from the person doing this?" Mara didn't answer that. Instead, she said, "They're written to guide behavior." Aaron narrowed his eyes. "Guide whose behavior?" Mara looked at him. "Yours," she said. The word landed heavy. Aaron didn't respond, because something about it felt true. Not as an accusation, as an observation. But later that evening, Aaron drove with Mara to the community center. He hadn't planned to show her the chair, but the moment she said "staged," the image of that chair turned toward the door had returned like a pulse. Inside, the cold hit them harder than expected. Mara walked into the room and stopped. She didn't move for a long moment. "This is not vandalism," she said quietly. Aaron watched her. "What is it then?" Mara took a step around the chair. "This is anticipation," she said. Someone wanted the room to feel watched. Brooks frowned. "But why a chair?" Mara looked at him. "Because a chair is human," she said. "It implies presence without providing it." Aaron stared at the chair again. Presence without providing it. That phrase slid into his mind like a blade. He hated how much it made sense. On the drive back, Mara asked Aaron about Maple Creek. Not the case. The town. "How long have you been here?" she asked. 3 years, he said. "And before that?" "Denver." Mara nodded slowly. "Big city crimes, big city chaos," she said. Aaron didn't answer. Mara continued anyway. "Small towns don't have less darkness," she said. "They have better ways of hiding it." Aaron's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "That's a theory," he said. Mara's voice stayed calm. "It's a pattern," she replied. 2 days later, a third event occurred. Still not a disappearance, not officially. A teenage boy was found wandering near the frozen lake at the edge of town, disoriented, barely speaking. His name was Tyler Grady. He'd gone out with friends to skate, separated, then nothing. His friends said he vanished for maybe 20 minutes. Tyler said it felt like hours. The medical report showed mild hypothermia. Nothing else. No wounds, no obvious assault. But Tyler wouldn't look anyone in the eyes. Aaron sat beside him in the hospital room. Mara stood at the back, arms crossed. Tyler stared at the bedsheet, fingers picking at the fabric. "Tyler," Aaron said gently, "I need you to tell me what happened." Tyler's mouth opened slightly, no sound. Aaron waited. Silence could be patience or terror. Finally, Tyler whispered, "I heard someone breathing." Brooks shifted near the door. Aaron kept his voice low. "Breathing where?" Tyler's throat bobbed. "In my hood," he whispered. A long pause. "It sounded like someone was right behind me, like they were close enough to..." He swallowed hard. Aaron didn't push too fast. "What did you do?" Aaron asked. Tyler's voice trembled. "I didn't run," he said. "I just stood there, because if I ran, it meant it was real." Aaron felt something cold move through him. Mara's eyes didn't leave Tyler's face. "What happened next?" Mara asked softly. Tyler flinched at her voice, then whispered, "Someone said my name." Aaron's muscles tightened. "Who?" he asked. Tyler shook his head. "I didn't see anyone," he said. "But they knew my name." Mara stepped forward slightly. "Tyler," she said gently, What did they say after your name? Tyler's eyes filled with tears. They said, he swallowed, voice almost gone. Don't ignore the first warning. The room went silent. Aaron didn't move. Brooks didn't breathe. Mara's expression changed for the first time, just slightly. Not shock, recognition. But she didn't say that out loud, because if she did, it would become real. Aaron kept his voice steady. Did they touch you? Tyler shook his head quickly. No. No, but they were there. I know they were there. Mara nodded slowly. Okay, she said. Then she looked at Aaron. That's not random, she whispered. Aaron's stomach tightened, because Tyler's words weren't evidence. They were a message, and messages were part of staging. After they left the hospital, Brooks spoke first. You said no hints, Brooks muttered. That feels like a hint. Aaron didn't answer immediately. Mara did. It's not a hint about identity, she said. It's a hint about method. Aaron glanced at her. Mara kept walking. Someone is shaping the narrative, she said. They're teaching this town a lesson. Brooks's voice rose. A lesson about what? Mara stopped and looked at him. About what happens when people pretend danger doesn't exist, she said. Aaron felt his jaw tighten, because that was the theme he'd felt from the start. Ignored warnings, delayed consequences. And now a teenager shaking in a hospital bed had spoken the phrase out loud. It meant someone out there wanted those words inside the town's bloodstream. That night, Aaron found a new message taped beneath his windshield wiper. Not emailed, not digital, physical, handwritten. No fingerprints, of course, just neat block letters on plain white paper. You keep filing the truth under non-urgent. How many warnings does a town deserve? Aaron stared at it. His throat went tight, not because the message threatened him, because it knew him. It knew his habits. It knew the way the system worked. Or worse, it knew the way Aaron worked. He folded the note and put it in his pocket. Mara watched him. Don't tell the chief, she said quietly. Aaron looked at her. Why? Because the moment this becomes a public game, Mara said, people will start dying faster. Aaron held her gaze. Faster than this? He asked. Mara didn't answer. That was answer enough. When Aaron finally went home, he didn't turn on lights. He stood in the dark, living room for a moment, listening. Silence. Then a soft creak somewhere in the house. Old wood, heat shifting. He told himself it was nothing, but his body didn't believe him. He checked every lock, every window, everything closed, everything intact. Still, he didn't sleep, because his mind kept returning to one thought. The person doing this wasn't hiding. They were orchestrating, and Maple Creek was reacting exactly how it always had. Late, quiet, polite, as if manners could protect it from what was coming. A terrifying crime pattern emerges as fear and silence take over the town. By the time the third week began, Maple Creek no longer pretended this was normal. The town hadn't said it out loud, but it had changed its behavior. That was always the first sign. People walked faster. Windows stayed shut even during the day. Porch lights remained on long after sunrise, as if light itself had become a superstition. Fear didn't arrive, screaming. It arrived politely, and that was what terrified Aaron Cole the most. The chief called an emergency meeting. Closed doors, no press, no recorders, just voices low enough to pretend control still existed. We need to contain this, the chief said. Public panic will make things worse. Aaron sat quietly. Mara stood against the wall, arms crossed, watching reactions instead of listening to words. What we need, the chief continued, is to stop using language that implies intent. Aaron finally spoke. Intent doesn't disappear just because we refuse to name it. The room stiffened. One councilman leaned forward. Detective, are you suggesting we have a serial offender? Aaron chose his words carefully. I'm suggesting we have a pattern that benefits from delay. Silence followed, not agreement, avoidance. The chief cleared his throat. We'll increase patrols, he said, quietly. Quietly, always quietly. Mara exhaled through her nose. Quiet is what got you here, she said calmly. The chief shot her a look. And noise, he replied, gets people killed. Mara met his gaze. So does denial. No one responded because both statements were true. After the meeting, Aaron walked with Mara down the hall. You shouldn't have said that, he muttered. Mara shrugged. They already know it, she said. They just don't want it confirmed. Aaron stopped near the exit. They won't back us if this escalates. Mara looked at him. They won't back you even if it doesn't, she replied. They'll protect the image of the town first, always. Aaron knew she was right. That knowledge settled like weight on his chest. The third disappearance wasn't reported immediately. That was the problem. A woman named Claire Monroe failed to show up for work at the library. Her co-workers assumed she was sick. By the time anyone checked her apartment, 48 hours had passed. The door was locked, lights off, phone on the counter, shoes by the door. Aaron stared at the scene. It was almost identical, not because it was copied, but because it was restrained. Someone was repeating behavior without leaving repetition. That took discipline. Brooks broke the silence. This isn't coincidence anymore, he said quietly. Aaron didn't answer. He was focused on the bookshelf, a small gap, one book missing. Mara noticed it too. What was there? She asked. The librarian shrugged. She had hundreds, I don't know. Aaron bent closer. Dust patterns told stories. The book hadn't been removed recently. It had been removed intentionally. Time unknown, purpose unknown. Another detail added to the pile. Another unanswered question. In the hallway, Claire's neighbor watched them. A man in his early 60s, retired, polite smile. Terrible thing, he said. Aaron nodded. Did you hear anything unusual? Aaron asked. The man shook his head. No, just quiet. Always quiet. Aaron noticed something else. The man's door had 2 locks. Both engaged, from the inside, but there were fresh scratches near the handle. Small, deliberate, like someone testing boundaries without crossing them. Aaron didn't comment, but he photographed them, because boundaries mattered. Back at the station, the board was fuller. 3 disappearances, unlocked doors elsewhere, the chair, the lake incident, emails, notes, nothing connected openly. But the emotional pattern was undeniable. Mara stood in front of the board. This isn't about killing, she said quietly. Brooks frowned. Then what is it about? Mara looked at Aaron before answering. Control, she said. Specifically, delayed control. Aaron's jaw tightened. Explain. Mara pointed to the timeline. Each event forces the town to feel something it's trained to ignore, she said. Fear, guilt, responsibility. She turned. And each time the town responds too late. Aaron felt it click emotionally, not logically. Emotionally, this wasn't someone reacting, this was someone teaching. That night, the town held a candlelight vigil. Aaron didn't want to go. Mara insisted. This is part of it, she said. You need to see how they grieve. The park was full. Candles flickered against the snow. faces blurred by tears and cold. Someone spoke into a microphone about unity, about faith, about hope. Aaron scanned the crowd, not for suspects, for reactions. Some people cried, some stared. One woman smiled briefly when the speaker mentioned lessons learned. Aaron's chest tightened. He memorized her face. Again, not suspicion. Recognition. As the child tugged at his mother's coat. "Why do we need candles?" the child whispered. The mother hesitated, then answered quietly. "So bad things don't happen again." Aaron closed his eyes. Candles didn't stop patterns. They memorialized them. Later that night, Aaron received another message. This one was longer, still anonymous, still calm. Fear doesn't arrive to punish. It arrives to correct behavior. But correction only works if the warning is ignored first. Aaron read it 3 times. His hands felt cold, not from the weather, from the precision. Mara read it too. "They're escalating language," she said. "What does that mean?" Brooks asked. "It means they believe the town is ready," Mara replied. Aaron didn't like the sound of that. Ready for what? The next morning, Tyler Grady disappeared. Not fully, but enough. His parents woke to find his bed empty. Window closed, door locked, phone charging. He was found hours later. Standing at the edge of the frozen lake, barefoot, staring down. He didn't respond when spoken to, just stood there, trembling. Aaron approached slowly. "Tyler," he said. The boy blinked, slowly. "They said I'd understand now," Tyler whispered. Aaron felt his stomach drop. "Who said that?" he asked gently. Tyler shook his head. "They didn't say their name," he murmured. "They said names come later." Mara's breath caught softly behind Aaron. "What did they want?" Aaron asked. Tyler swallowed. "They wanted me to remember," he said. "Remember what?" "That adults don't listen," Tyler replied. The sentence landed like ice cracking. Aaron crouched. "Did they hurt you?" Tyler shook his head. "No," he said. "They said pain comes after denial." Mara closed her eyes, not because she was shocked, because she was afraid she understood. The chief tried to shut the case down publicly that afternoon. "No confirmed criminal activity," he said. "No verified offender." Aaron stood behind him, silent. Mara wasn't allowed in the room. That told Aaron everything. After the briefing, Aaron confronted the chief. "This isn't sustainable," he said. The chief's voice dropped. "Neither is panic." Aaron stared at him. "What happens when someone dies?" Aaron asked. The chief didn't answer, because the answer was obvious. That was when Aaron realized something. The town wasn't being protected, it was being preserved at any cost. That night, Claire Monroe's body was found, not hidden, not damaged, just placed, seated on a park bench, hands folded, eyes closed, no visible wounds. The snow around her untouched, as if she had been delivered carefully. The medical examiner couldn't determine cause of death immediately. No trauma, no struggle, just absence of life. Aaron stood frozen. This was different, not louder, clearer. Mara whispered beside him, "This is the first consequence." Aaron swallowed. The killer hadn't escalated violence. They'd escalated certainty. The bench faced the vigil site. That wasn't coincidence. Aaron felt something collapse inside him. This wasn't random. This was a message to the town, to everyone who'd stood there with candles and promises. Claire's expression was peaceful. That made it worse. Peace implied completion. Back at the station, no one spoke. No one argued. The reality had arrived. Not screaming, not bloody, just undeniable. Mara broke the silence. This ends one of two ways now, she said quietly. Either you confront the truth about Maple Creek, or it keeps paying for its delays. Aaron leaned forward. And the truth is? Mara met his eyes. That this town has ignored warnings long before this started, she said. And someone decided to stop waiting. Aaron felt the weight of that sentence pressed down. Because deep down, he knew it was true. And because somewhere between the silence, the meetings, the candles, and the locked doors, Maple Creek had already chosen the wrong moment to listen. No one in the room challenged her, not out loud. But Aaron could see the resistance in their faces, the way their eyes slid away from the evidence board as if looking directly at it might invite more of it. The chief rubbed his temple. "We can't start digging up old rumors," he said. "Then you'll keep digging up bodies," Mara replied. Brooks shifted his weight, jaw tight. "What do we do right now?" he asked. Mara's gaze stayed on Aaron. "You stop letting the town set the pace," she said. "You set it." Aaron felt the familiar pull of procedure, the instinct to do everything in order, in neat steps, in measurable actions that could be defended later. But this case wasn't asking to be defended. It was asking to be survived. He gathered the printed emails, the handwritten note, the complaint logs, the voicemail transcript. Then he looked at Brooks. "Get me every minor call in the last 5 years that involved doors," he said. "Unlocked doors, forced locks, broken latches, anything." Brooks blinked. "That's a lot." "Do it anyway," Aaron said. Brooks nodded and moved. The chief opened his mouth, then closed it again. Aaron understood what that silence meant. Permission, without endorsement. Maple Creek's specialty. Mara picked up her coat. "I'm going to talk to Claire's co-workers," she said. "You don't have authority," the chief snapped. Mara didn't flinch. "Authority is what failed Claire," she said and walked out. Aaron watched her leave, then turned back to the board. He added Claire's name. He circled it once. Then after a pause, he circled it again. He wasn't sure why. Maybe because double circles felt like a warning. Or maybe because his hands needed something to do besides shake. The autopsy report came back the next morning, not complete, but enough to sharpen the fear. No signs of assault, no defensive wounds, no obvious toxins. The medical examiner's voice when Aaron called sounded tired. "Her body temperature suggests she died somewhere warm," the examiner said. Then she was brought outside, placed on that bench, and left. Aaron stared at the report in silence. Warm. In a town buried in snow, warmth was either comfort or concealment. "Time of death?" Aaron asked. "Hard to pin down," the examiner replied. "But she was dead before midnight." Aaron glanced at the vigil schedule pinned to the board. The vigil ended at 10:30 p.m. Claire was placed after that, after the town had gone home, after the candles had been blown out, a message delivered in the quiet. "Call me the moment you find anything abnormal," Aaron said. The examiner sighed. "Detective, everything about this is abnormal." Rachel Carter called that afternoon. Aaron could hear the tremble in her voice, the strain of carrying fear while pretending to be functional. "They found a woman in the park," she said. "Is it Emily?" "No," Aaron said gently. Rachel exhaled, relief and guilt tangled together. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I shouldn't feel—" "You don't control what your body does under stress," Aaron said. She was quiet a moment, then, "Do you think she's alive?" Aaron hesitated. Rachel's voice sharpened. "Don't do that," she said. "Don't pause, please." Aaron felt his throat tighten. I think, he said carefully, that Emily is connected to something bigger than we understood at first. Rachel's breathing became uneven. What does that mean? It means, Aaron said, we're going to widen the search. Rachel swallowed. I keep thinking about that voicemail, she said. I keep hearing her say she made a mistake. Aaron's eyes drifted to the blank paper in the evidence locker. I hear it too, he admitted. Rachel's voice dropped. She didn't sound scared, she said. She sounded disappointed, like she knew. Aaron closed his eyes. Disappointed. That word fit too well. And that night a patrol car was assigned to circle the lake. Not because the department believed Tyler was a target, because the department needed to look like it was doing something. Aaron went with Brooks anyway. They drove slowly through white streets. Street signs half buried, mailboxes capped with snow. Every house looked the same in winter. That sameness felt like camouflage. Brooks broke the silence. You think this is about Maple Creek, he said. Aaron kept his eyes on the road. I think Maple Creek is part of the reason it's working, he replied. Brooks frowned. Working? Aaron didn't answer right away. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower. This person is setting traps, he said. Not with weapons, with time, with attention. Brooks swallowed. You think they're enjoying it? Aaron thought of Claire's peaceful face. I think, he said, they're committed to it. Committed was worse than enjoying. Enjoyment could fade. Commitment didn't. And when they reached the lake, the wind cut across the frozen surface like a blade. Brooks stepped out first, flashlight sweeping the snow. Aaron followed. The air smelled like ice and pine and something metallic that might have been imagination. Tyler's footprints from the morning were gone, but not entirely. A faint disturbance in the snow remained near the shoreline, like someone had stood there long enough to melt it slightly. Brooks crouched. That's weird, he muttered. It's colder now. Aaron's gaze fixed on a small object half buried in the drift. A mitten, child-sized, dark blue. He picked it up carefully, gloved fingers pinching the fabric. Inside the cuff, stitched in faded thread, was a name. Tyler. Brooks stared. That was his, he said. Aaron didn't respond. He scanned the area again. No other items, no marks, just the mitten. Placed, like a reminder, like a warning. Aaron felt his pulse slow. This wasn't about taking. This was about returning pieces, pieces that made people look where they were told to look. He bagged the mitten. Brooks's voice shook. Do we tell his parents? Aaron's jaw tightened. Not yet, he said. Not until we know why it's here. Brooks stared at him. Why would someone leave that? Aaron looked out over the frozen black water. Because they want us to feel late, he said. At 3:06 a.m., Aaron received a call from dispatch. Another door complaint. This time, not an unlocked door. A door that wouldn't lock. A family on Juniper Street. The mother's voice on the phone was thin with panic. It keeps sliding back open, she said, like something is pushing from the outside. Aaron and Brooks arrived within minutes. The house was small, lights blazing inside. A father held a baseball bat, knuckles white. A teenage girl clutched a blanket, eyes wide. Aaron approached the front door. It was closed. But when he touched the handle, the latch didn't catch. It swung open slightly with the wind. Aaron examined the frame. The latch plate screws had been loosened, just enough to make the lock fail, not destroyed. Adjusted, deliberate. Aaron turned to the father. Did anyone do work on this door recently? He asked. The father shook his head hard. No, he said. We haven't touched it. Aaron knelt, and checked the screws again. One was missing entirely. He glanced down at the snow near the threshold, a small indentation, a shape pressed into the white, round, coin-sized. He couldn't tell what it had been, only that something had been there and was now gone. Brooks's voice was tight. "This isn't random," he said. Aaron straightened slowly. "No," he agreed. "It's not." The mother began to cry. "I knew I should have listened," she whispered. Aaron looked at her. "Listen to what?" She wiped her face with shaking hands. "There was a meeting last month," she said. "A safety thing. They told us to check locks, install cameras. I didn't. I thought Maple Creek didn't need that." Her voice cracked. Aaron felt the air shift. A new layer. Not evidence of a killer. Evidence of a theme. Warnings ignored. Brooks glanced at Aaron, eyes hard. Someone out there was turning negligence into terror, and they were doing it without showing their face. Aaron took a slow breath. He made a decision that felt like stepping off a ledge. "Brooks," he said quietly, "call the chief. Wake him up." Brooks blinked. "He's going to hate that." Aaron's voice was steady. "Good," he said. "He should." By sunrise, Maple Creek was no longer whispering. It was demanding. The story of the loose lock spread. Parents kept children home from school. Businesses closed early. People lined up at hardware stores for deadbolts and motion lights. Fear had become a market. Aaron watched it all from his office window. Mara arrived carrying a folder. She set it down without speaking. Aaron opened it. Inside were old articles. Old missing person flyers, reports from 10 years ago, 20. Names he didn't recognize. Faces blurred by time. Mara's voice was quiet. "Claire wasn't the first person this town lost," she said. Aaron looked up. "That's not possible," he said. Mara's expression didn't change. "It's not only possible," she replied. "It's documented. It just wasn't called what it was." Aaron felt his stomach tighten. "How many?" he asked. Mara exhaled slowly. "Enough," she said, "that someone could believe Maple Creek deserves this." Aaron stared at the old photos, each one a person who had been missed, and then quietly forgotten. A cold clarity moved through him. The fall wasn't coming. The fall had started years ago. Emily was just the moment it became visible. Aaron closed the folder and looked at Mara. "We don't say any of this publicly," he said. Mara nodded. "I know," she said. "If the town realizes what it ignored, it will break." Aaron's voice lowered. "It's already breaking," he said. Mara's eyes held his. "Then you have to decide," she whispered, "whether you're investigating a criminal or a community." Aaron didn't answer, because he didn't know which truth would be harder to survive. He spent the rest of the day reading, not the new files, the old ones. Reports stamped closed, cases labeled miscommunication, lost contact, moved away. Language that made tragedy sound administrative. Brooks brought coffee and didn't speak for a while. Finally, he asked, "How did nobody notice this?" Aaron's eyes stayed on the pages. "People notice," he said. "They just decide it's safer to call it something else." Brooks swallowed. "And now someone's calling it what it is." Aaron didn't respond. He was staring at a report from 14 years ago. A woman, late 20s, vanished after a night shift at a diner. Phone left behind. Door locked. Snowstorm that night, according to the note stapled to the file. Aaron felt his fingers go numb. He flipped to the last page. The closing statement read, "No evidence of foul play, likely voluntary absence." He set the file down. Slowly, Mara watched him. "That's your pattern," she said. Aaron's voice was rough. It's not a pattern, he said. It's a habit. The town's habit. Mara leaned forward. Habits can be exploited, she said softly. Aaron looked up. Or punished, he replied. Mara didn't disagree. She just said, the next move won't be louder, it'll be smarter. Aaron felt that sentence settle inside him like a countdown. He called Rachel again. When she answered, her voice was raw. I saw the news, she whispered. I know, Aaron said. A pause. Then he asked, did Emily ever mention the old diner on Main Street? Rachel's breathing caught. Why? She asked. Aaron kept his tone calm. Just answer me. Rachel hesitated. She used to work there in college, she said. But she hated it. She said the owner made her feel like she was being measured. Measured. Aaron closed his eyes. Rachel's voice cracked. Detective. What's happening? Aaron chose his words carefully. I think Emily stumbled into something this town buried a long time ago, Rachel whispered. So my sister didn't make a mistake that night. Aaron's throat tightened. No, he said quietly. I think she realized the mistake was older than her. When the call ended, Aaron stared at the evidence board again. He added one more pin. A name from 14 years ago. A red string that connected nothing yet. But in his chest, he felt the connection anyway. Not in logic, in dread. And for the first time, Maple Creek felt less like a town and more like a locked room slowly filling with cold. A true crime. Mystery forces a reckoning with Maple Creek's buried past. Snow made time feel slower in Maple Creek. Days didn't pass. They accumulated, in layers, like drifts against doors. Aaron Cole drove to the oldest building in town before sunrise because he couldn't stand another meeting where people argued about language while evidence piled up in silence. The courthouse was small, brick, and stubborn. It looked like it had survived by refusing to change. Inside, the air smelled of paper and old heat. A clerk with tired eyes looked up when Aaron showed his badge. Records, Aaron said. The clerk's mouth tightened. What kind? The kind nobody wanted to read, Aaron replied. A long pause. Then the clerk stood, unlocked a door, and led him down a narrow hallway lined with filing cabinets that looked more like coffins than storage. You're not the first detective who's come down here, the clerk said quietly. Aaron stopped. When was the last time? The clerk hesitated. Before you transferred in, she said. A few years back. He asked questions. People got uncomfortable. What happened to him? Aaron asked. The clerk's eyes lowered. He left, she said. Left. Another word Maple Creek used to avoid the truth. Aaron followed her into a room that held decades of unresolved stories. Boxes were stacked like bricks. Folders wore dust like a warning label. He picked one at random and opened it. A missing man. 21 years ago. Phone left behind. Door locked. A winter storm noted in the margin. Aaron's stomach tightened. He flipped through, reading the same phrases again and again. Likely voluntary absence. No indication of foul play. Family advised to wait. The town's habits were printed in black ink. Mara Venn arrived 10 minutes later, stepping into the room as if she belonged there. You didn't tell anyone you were coming, she said. Aaron didn't look up. If I told them, they'd have time to stop me. Mara nodded once. Brooks followed her, carrying a cardboard box of his own. 5 years of door complaints, he said. It's worse than I thought. Aaron gestured to the shelves. This is worse than you thought. They worked without speaking for a while. Just paper, dates, names, short notes that tried to make lost sound manageable. After an hour, Brooks set down a file and rubbed his forehead. How is it always winter? He asked. Aaron stared at the page. "It's not always winter," he said. "It's just that winter hides the evidence." Mara's voice was calm. "And winter amplifies fear," she added. "Perfect season for a lesson." Brooks looked up. "A lesson for who?" Mara didn't answer. She didn't need to. The lesson was for Maple Creek, and Aaron was starting to understand the syllabus. So by midday they had a list, not a suspect list, a history list. 9 disappearances over 26 years that matched the same quiet pattern. Phones left behind, locked doors, minimal struggle, bad weather, cases closed softly, families left to grieve privately. Aaron stared at the names and felt a slow anger rise. Not at the missing, at the living who had made peace with absence. He took the list to the chief. The chief read it in silence, face tightening with every line. When he finished, he pushed the paper back across the desk. "This doesn't prove anything," he said. Aaron's voice stayed low. "It proves we've been wrong for years." The chief's jaw clenched. "It proves we don't have resources," he snapped. "It proves people leave. It proves you closed files because you wanted the town to stay clean," Mara cut in. The chief's eyes flashed. "You're not even sworn in here." Mara's expression didn't change. "Neither is the truth," she said. Brooks shifted uncomfortably. Aaron watched the chief's hands. They were shaking slightly, not fear, pressure. This wasn't just a case now. It was an accusation against the town, against its leaders, against everyone who had said, "Not here." The chief leaned back. "If you bring this public," he said, "you'll start a riot." Aaron met his gaze. "Or we'll stop the next body." The chief looked away. That was his answer. Delay again. That afternoon, Aaron visited the old diner on Main Street. It was still there, still open, still warm. A bell rang when he entered, the sound bright in a place that smelled like coffee and fried onions. The owner was a man named Hank Mercer, late 50s, arms thick from years of work, smile practiced. Aaron sat at the counter and ordered black coffee. Hank poured it without asking. "You're the detective," Hank said. Aaron nodded. Hank's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Hard time for the town." Aaron stirred his coffee even though he didn't need to. "You ever work nights?" he asked. Hank chuckled. "For 30 years." Aaron's voice stayed casual. "You remember a waitress from years ago? Emily Carter. She worked here in college." Hank's hand paused on a mug. Only for a second. Then he kept moving. "Lots of kids worked here," he said. "Hard to remember." Aaron let silence stretch. Hank filled another cup. Aaron watched him. Not for guilt, for discomfort. Hank's shoulders were tense. His jaw worked slightly like he was chewing on something unsaid. Aaron didn't push. Pushing created friction. Friction created stories. And Aaron needed Hank to believe this was just conversation. "You ever hear about folks going missing back then?" Aaron asked. Hank snorted softly. "People disappear everywhere," he said. "Big deal." Mara stood near the door, hands in her coat pockets, scanning the room. Brooks sat in a booth pretending to read a menu. Aaron nodded slowly. "Sure," he said, "but phones left behind, doors locked, snowstorms. That's a specific kind of disappearing." Hank's smile tightened. "Detective," he said, voice lower now. "You're chasing patterns because you're scared. That's normal. But you shouldn't stir up old stories." "Old stories?" Aaron sipped his coffee. It tasted bitter, like it was trying to warn him. "Why not?" Aaron asked quietly. Hank leaned closer, not threatening, just firm. "Because this town survives on calm," he said, "and calm survives on not digging." Aaron held his gaze. Then he nodded as if he understood. He paid for his coffee, left without accusation. Outside, Mara exhaled. "You saw it," she said. "I saw something," Aaron replied. Brooks joined them, voice tight. "He knows more than he said." Aaron didn't disagree, but knowing someone knew was not the same as proving it, and proof was the only thing Maple Creek respected. That evening, Tyler Grady's mother showed up at the station. Her name was Lillian. Her eyes were red from crying and sleeplessness. She didn't sit when Aaron offered. "He's not my son right now," she said, voice shaking. "He's here. But he's not here." Aaron kept his tone gentle. "Tell me what happened." Lillian swallowed. "He woke up screaming," she said. "He kept saying the lake was listening." Mara's eyes narrowed slightly. Lillian continued. "He said he heard a voice again." Aaron felt his stomach tighten. "What did it say?" Lillian's hands clenched. "He wouldn't tell me," she whispered. "He just said it promised him something." Brooks spoke softly. "Promised what?" Lillian's lips trembled. "That he wouldn't be the last kid to learn," she said. Aaron felt cold spread through his chest. Not evidence, a message designed to travel through parents, through fear, through guilt, through the exact veins of community. Mara stepped forward. "Lillian," she said, voice calm. "Did Tyler mention any place besides the lake?" Lillian hesitated. Then she nodded once, barely. He said he smelled cinnamon," she whispered. Aaron blinked. "Cinnamon?" Lillian nodded again, tears forming. "He said it smelled like the Christmas fundraiser at the church hall." Aaron looked at Mara. Mara's expression remained unreadable, but her eyes had sharpened again. Another layer, another thread, another detail that meant nothing now and everything later. Aaron wrote it down, not as a clue, as a future debt. That night, Aaron drove to the church. Not the main sanctuary, the hall behind it, the fundraiser hall. The parking lot was empty, snow covered the lines. The building stood quiet, lights off, as if it didn't want to be part of anything. Aaron walked around the back, a side door, locked. He tried the handle anyway. It didn't move. He didn't force it. He just stood there, listening. Silence. Then faintly a clicking sound. Not from the door, from somewhere else. A heater turning on, or a pipe settling, or something that sounded like it could be anything if you were tired enough. Brooks spoke behind him. "You think someone's inside?" Aaron shook his head. "I think someone wants us to think about inside." Mara stood a few steps away, staring at the dark windows. "Places hold memory," she said quietly. Aaron looked at her. Mara's voice was softer. "So do communities." Aaron felt the words land, because he knew what she meant. A town could remember by refusing to speak. The next morning, the mayor called Aaron into her office. Mayor Elise Warren was sharp, polished, and tired in a way that makeup couldn't hide. She offered coffee. Aaron refused. She leaned forward. "Detective," she said, "the state is calling, reporters are calling, businesses are calling." Aaron nodded. Elise's voice tightened. "We need a clear message." "A clear message would require clear facts," Aaron said. Elise's smile was thin. "We need calm," she replied. Aaron held her gaze. "Calm is what got Emily taken." Elise's expression flickered. A second, then back to polished. "We don't know that," she said. Aaron's voice was low. "We know enough to stop pretending." Elise's fingers tapped the desk once. "If you start telling people about old disappearances," she said, "you'll destroy the town's trust." Mara, standing near the doorway, spoke softly. Trust built on silence is not trust, she said. Elise's eyes snapped to her. Who are you? Mara didn't move. Someone who knows what denial costs, she said. Elise turned back to Aaron. You're going to end this, she said quietly. Aaron felt anger rise again, not loud, cold. I'm going to end it, he said, but not quietly. Elise's mouth tightened. Then you'll make enemies, she warned. Aaron nodded. I already have, he said. Later, Aaron visited Claire Monroe's apartment again, this time with Mara. They didn't search for fingerprints, they searched for meaning. Mara walked slowly through the rooms, eyes unfocused as if listening to the air. People leave emotional residue, she said. Aaron glanced at her. That's not forensic. Mara's voice stayed calm. It's human, she replied. She stopped at the bookshelf, ran a finger along the gap where the missing book had been. What do you think it was? Aaron asked. Mara didn't answer immediately. Then she said, something she didn't want found after she was gone. Aaron's stomach tightened. Brooks looked up from a drawer. So she hid it? Mara shook her head slightly. Or someone removed it, she said. Aaron felt the room tilt. Removed, placed, adjusted. Everything about this case was about controlling what remained. Mara turned and looked at Aaron. Tell me about Denver, she said suddenly. Aaron blinked. What? The case you left, Mara said. The one that made you come here. Brooks froze. Aaron's jaw tightened. That's not relevant, he said. Mara's eyes didn't move. It's relevant if this person knows how you work, she said. Aaron felt his throat go tight. He thought of the note under his wiper. You keep filing the truth under non-urgent. That wasn't a random insult, it was personal. Aaron exhaled slowly. Denver was messy, he said. Here is supposed to be clean. Mara nodded. And clean makes you predictable, she said. Aaron looked away. Predictable. Another warning. That afternoon, a package arrived at the station. No return address, no postage stamp that made sense. Just a brown box left on the front steps as if it belonged there. Brooks carried it into the evidence room. No one touched it without gloves. The bomb squad was called. They scanned it. No explosives, no electronics, nothing immediate. Aaron opened it slowly. Inside was a small hardback notebook, old, worn, the cover blank, the pages filled with handwriting. Not neat, not sloppy, careful, like someone writing with purpose, not style. Mara leaned closer. Aaron flipped to the first page. A list of dates, names, short notes, locked, left behind, quiet, winter. Aaron's breath caught. It was a record, a private record, of events Maple Creek had filed away. Brooks whispered, Is this real? Mara's voice was barely audible. It's a confession without a name, she said. Aaron swallowed hard. This notebook didn't reveal a killer. It revealed a historian, someone who had been watching for years, someone who understood the town's habit better than the town did. Aaron closed the notebook carefully. His hands were steady, but his chest felt tight. Because now the case wasn't just current, it was decades old. And someone had been patient long enough to write it all down. That night, Aaron drove through Maple Creek with the notebook in his passenger seat, like it was radioactive. The streets looked the same, but they didn't feel the same. Every porch light looked like a signal. Every closed curtain looked like an alibi. Every quiet house looked like a room that might be missing someone. He stopped near the park. The bench where Claire had been placed was still there, roped off. Snow gathered on it again, erasing the outline of her absence. Aaron stepped out and stood by the tape. Mara joined him. You feel it, she said quietly. Aaron didn't look at her. I feel like the town is being judged, he said. Mara's voice was soft. Maybe it is, she replied. Aaron clenched his jaw. That's not justice, he said. Mara didn't argue. She just said, it's what happens when warnings become history. Aaron stared at the bench. He thought of Emily, of Claire, of a runner whose shoes still sat by his door, of a boy who smelled cinnamon in the dark, of a notebook that recorded the town's silence like a diary of neglect. And he realized something that made his stomach drop. The person doing this wasn't improvising. They were following a plan. Oh, plan written in years. A plan designed to make Maple Creek face itself. And Aaron, whether he wanted it or not, was now part of the story the town had tried to bury. He reached into his coat pocket and felt the folded handwritten note. He didn't unfold it. He didn't need to. He already knew what it said without looking. How many warnings does a town deserve? Aaron stared into the snow-covered dark and whispered, more than you're giving us. The wind carried his words away. But the town, he knew, was listening now. Too late. And still pretending it wasn't. The next day brought a different kind of storm. Not snow. People. A state investigator arrived from Denver, a woman in a gray coat with a folder tucked under her arm. Her name was Dana Pike. You've made enough noise that the state wants a look, she said. The chief forced a smile. We're handling it. Dana's eyes didn't soften. Not anymore. That afternoon, Aaron tracked down the retired detective the courthouse clerk had hinted at. His name was Leonard Shaw. He lived on the edge of town in a small house that looked like it had been repaired 100 times and still expected more damage. Shaw opened the door with a chain still on. I'm not talking, he said. Aaron kept his voice calm. You already did, he replied. Years ago, in the records. Shaw's eyes narrowed. Then he unhooked the chain. Inside, the house smelled like wood smoke and old regret. Shaw gestured toward a chair. You've got 10 minutes, he said. Aaron didn't sit. He held out the list of old disappearances. You worked some of these, Aaron said. Shaw glanced at the paper and scoffed. Worked, he repeated. That's generous. Aaron's voice tightened. Why were they closed? Shaw's laugh was bitter. Because Maple Creek doesn't do scandals, he said. Because everyone wanted the snow to bury it. Brooks stared. You're saying people knew? Shaw's eyes were hard. People suspected, he said. And suspicion is inconvenient. Aaron leaned forward slightly. What did you suspect? Shaw's jaw clenched. That the town had a hole, he said. And every few years someone fell into it. Mara's voice was calm. A hole made by what? Shaw's gaze drifted to the window. By silence, he said. Shaw pulled out an old Polaroid and slid it across the table. A church hall, a table with paper plates. On the wall behind it, a banner that read, Winter Fundraiser. Aaron's chest tightened. Mara leaned closer, eyes narrowing. Shaw tapped the photo once. Every time someone vanished, there was a fundraiser, he said. Or a town event, something that made everyone busy. Brooks frowned. You're saying the town's distractions were timed? Shaw shrugged. Or maybe the town just loves celebrating while it ignores rot. Aaron's voice was low. Why didn't you push? Shaw's laugh cracked. Because when I pushed, he said, my wife got a dead crow on our porch and a note that said, stop. Aaron felt cold spread through him. Mara asked softly, do you still have that note? Shaw shook his head once. I burned it, he said. Like everyone burns things they're afraid to keep. On the way back, Dana called Aaron. I looked into your transfer, she said. Aaron's grip tightened on the wheel. Dana's voice was blunt. You didn't leave Denver because you wanted quiet. You left because you couldn't close what followed you. Aaron's throat tightened. It was filed. Dana exhaled. Exactly, she said, and now you have notes again. Tell me you don't see the echo. Aaron didn't answer. That night an envelope appeared at Aaron's house. No footprints. No tire tracks. Just a small envelope beneath the welcome mat. Aaron stood over it before touching it. Mara was with him. Brooks stayed near the street, scanning the dark. Aaron finally picked it up. Inside was a single photograph, his Denver case file cover, his name typed at the top, and beneath it written in block letters, "You don't learn, you relocate." Aaron's stomach dropped. Mara's voice was barely a whisper. They know your history, she said. Aaron didn't respond, because for the first time the case wasn't just about Maple Creek. It was about him. The wind cut across the porch, and in the distance a church bell rang once, not on any schedule, just one note that felt like a warning. Aaron kept staring into the dark after the bell faded, as if the sound had left an imprint on the snow. Brooks finally spoke. That bell isn't automatic, he said. Someone has to pull it. Mara's eyes didn't move from the street. Or someone has to make you believe. They did, she said. Aaron felt the photograph in his hand like a weight. He slid it back into the envelope, then into his pocket. Inside the house, he didn't turn on lights. He stood in the entryway and listened. Nothing. Then from somewhere deep in the walls, a soft creak. Old wood. Heat. Or movement. Brooks tightened his grip on his flashlight. Aaron raised a hand. No, he whispered. If we chase shadows in my house, we turn this into a personal show. Mara's voice was calm. It already is, she replied. Aaron exhaled slowly. He looked at them both. Tomorrow, he said, we stop being polite. Brooks frowned. What does that mean? It means subpoenas, Aaron said. Interviews with people who don't want to be interviewed. Asking the church for keys, asking the diner for schedules. Asking the town for its memory. Mara nodded slightly. Good, she said. Because the person doing this is counting on you to stay inside the rules while they stay outside them. Aaron's jaw tightened. And if the rules are the problem? Mara met his eyes. Then you'll have to decide who you're loyal to, she said. The system, or the missing. Silence settled. Not comfortable, just honest. Aaron set 3 mugs on the counter. He didn't offer coffee. He offered a place to keep talking, because tonight, Maple Creek wasn't the only thing being tested. Someone wasn't just collecting bodies, they were collecting choices. Aaron looked at Mara and Brooks, then he said softly, We find the first warning. Brooks whispered, From Emily? Aaron shook his head. From before Emily, he said. Outside, the wind moved through the snow like a page turning. If they could identify where the ignoring began, they could predict where the next silence would land before it hit. A psychological crime spiral tightens as every clue leads nowhere. By the time the subpoenas went out, Maple Creek had stopped pretending it wasn't under siege. The fear had changed shape. It was no longer sharp or panicked. It was dense, heavy. The kind of fear that settled into routines and made people careful about what they said, and even more careful about what they didn't. Aaron Cole felt it everywhere. In the way people answered questions with rehearsed calm, in the way doors opened only part way, in the way eyes scanned behind him before voices lowered. Fear had learned discretion, and that made it harder to track. The first subpoena went to the church, not the sanctuary, the hall, The fundraiser committee, donation logs, key access records. Aaron stood in the church office across from Pastor Reynolds, a man whose smile had always been warm until now. "This feels excessive," Reynolds said, folding his hands. Aaron kept his voice even. "What feels excessive is pretending a place used repeatedly during disappearances isn't relevant." Reynolds stiffened. "That hall has hosted weddings, food drives, funerals," he said. "Are you suggesting—" "I'm suggesting," Aaron interrupted gently, "that it's time we stop protecting places more than people." Reynolds looked away, not angry, uncomfortable. That was worse. Mara reviewed the donation logs while Brooks checked the maintenance records. Dates lined up too well. Not perfectly, but close enough to feel intentional. Fundraisers, town events, volunteer nights. Every time someone vanished, Maple Creek had been busy congratulating itself for being a good community. Mara tapped the table lightly. "Distraction isn't just noise," she said. "It's permission." Aaron nodded. The town had given itself permission not to notice. The diner subpoena came next. Hank Mercer didn't hide his irritation. "You think paperwork proves something?" He snapped. Aaron didn't rise to it. "I think schedules tell stories people forget they lived," he said. Hank slammed a binder onto the counter. "There," he said. "Read whatever you want." Aaron flipped through. Names, shifts, years. A lot of young people, a lot of late nights, a lot of turnover. Then he saw it. A pattern not in who worked, but in who stopped. Multiple employees who left abruptly during winters. No notice, no references, just gone. Aaron marked the names silently. Hank watched him. "You done?" Hank asked. Aaron closed the binder. "For now," he said. Hank's jaw clenched. "Digging doesn't make you a hero," Hank said. Aaron met his eyes. "No," he replied, "but pretending nothing's buried makes you complicit." Hank's face flushed. For a moment, Aaron thought he'd crossed a line. Then Hank laughed. Not humor. Defense. "You think this town's dirty," Hank said. "You think you're the first to come looking for rot?" Aaron's voice was quiet. "No," he said. "I think I'm just the one who didn't look away." The pressure reached the department. State investigator Dana Pike requested full access. The chief stalled. Paperwork multiplied. Meetings grew longer and less productive. Aaron felt the system tightening around itself, protecting image, protecting history, protecting everyone except the people who disappeared. Mara noticed it too. "They're bracing," she said. "That means someone else is moving." Aaron nodded, because whoever had orchestrated this had always stayed one step ahead of hesitation. That night, another message arrived, not to Aaron, to the town. Flyers appeared on windshields, doors, mailboxes, plain white paper, black text, no signature. How many warnings does a community need before it admits it was wrong? The department scrambled to remove them. Too late. Phones rang nonstop. Panic returned, this time louder. Aaron read the flyer slowly. Not as a threat, as a mirror. Mara stood beside him. "They're escalating reach," she said. "Still not violence." Aaron folded the paper carefully. "Because violence would end the lesson," he said. Mara looked at him. "Yes," she agreed. In the next interview was with Leonard Shaw again, this time more direct. "Who else knew?" Aaron asked. Shaw stared at the floor. "A few," he said. "Enough to matter." "Names," Aaron said. Shaw shook his head. "They're not villains," he said, "and they're cowards." Aaron leaned forward. "Cowards enable monsters," he said. Shaw's voice cracked. "And sometimes," he said, "cowards create them." The room went quiet. That sentence stayed. not as an accusation, as a possibility. Later, Mara reviewed the notebook again. Dates circled, events underlined, patterns invisible unless you already knew where to look. She looked up suddenly. "These aren't just records," she said. Aaron looked at her. "They're rehearsals," Mara continued. "Someone planned this long before Emily." Aaron felt a slow chill. Planning required patience, and patience required belief. Belief that the town would behave exactly as it always had. That evening, Tyler Grady refused to eat. His parents called Mara directly. When Aaron arrived, Tyler sat at the table staring at nothing. "Tyler," Aaron said softly. The boy blinked. "They're getting closer," Tyler whispered. Aaron crouched. "Who?" he asked. Tyler shook his head. "Not people," he said. "Consequences." Mara inhaled sharply. Tyler's voice trembled. "They said adults confuse rules with safety," he whispered. Aaron felt his chest tighten. "What else did they say?" Mara asked gently. Tyler hesitated, then whispered, "That the last warning hurts the most." Silence filled the room, not because no one knew what to say, because everyone understood what it meant. That night, Aaron sat alone in his office long after midnight. The board was full, too full. Lines crossed. Connections overlapped. Nothing pointed to a face. Everything pointed to a failure. And failures didn't bleed. They waited. Aaron leaned back, eyes burning. For the first time since the case began, he felt truly lost. Not confused, lost. Because every path led back to the town itself, and you couldn't arrest a town. He checked the old files again. One detail surfaced repeatedly. Each disappearance followed a complaint that had been minimized. Each victim had raised a concern. Each concern had been logged and filed away. Warnings ignored. Aaron closed the file slowly. His phone vibrated. A text. Unknown number. "You're finally reading the right pages." Aaron stared at the screen. His pulse steadied. Not fear. Recognition. Whoever this was. They were watching his process, not his location, his thinking. And that meant the real danger wasn't where he was going. It was where he was about to arrive. Aaron didn't reply to the message, not because he didn't want to, but because replying would acknowledge a rhythm that didn't belong to him. He turned the phone face down on his desk and stared at the board again. For the first time, he erased something. Not a name, a line, a connection he'd drawn earlier that suddenly felt too convenient, too easy. This case wasn't rewarding shortcuts. It punished them. Mara returned just before dawn. She hadn't gone home. Neither had Brooks. None of them had said it out loud, but the station had become a kind of shelter. Not from danger. From isolation, Mara placed a new stack of new papers on Aaron's desk. "Church volunteers," she said quietly. 20 years' worth. Aaron flipped through. Names repeated. Not constantly, intermittently. People who came and went, but some who stayed. Too long, too consistently. Aaron tapped one name, then another, then stopped. "Do you see it?" Mara asked. Aaron nodded slowly. "They don't disappear," he said. "They remain." Mara exhaled. "Whoever's doing this values continuity," she said. "People who stay invisible by being useful." Aaron leaned back. That wasn't a suspect profile. It was a philosophy. At 7:18 a.m., a school bus failed to arrive. Not late. Gone. The driver, a man named Carl Benton, hadn't shown up at the depot. His phone rang unanswered. His house was locked, lights off. His wife found his keys on the kitchen table. Aaron arrived before the sun fully cleared the clouds. Another disappearance. But this one hit differently. because it disrupted routine. Children waiting, parents panicking. The town couldn't ignore it, and whoever had orchestrated this knew exactly what lever they'd pulled. Carl's wife, Denise, sat on the couch staring at the floor. "I asked him to install a new lock," she said quietly. "Last week." Aaron's chest tightened. "What kind of lock?" he asked. Denise swallowed. "One of those smart ones," she said. "He said it was unnecessary." Mara glanced at Aaron. Denise continued, voice hollow. "He said Maple Creek doesn't need that kind of thing." The sentence landed like a verdict. Aaron wrote it down, not as evidence, as confession. Outside, reporters gathered. State police vehicles arrived. Dana Pike took control without ceremony. "This is no longer a local situation," she said flatly. The chief didn't argue. That silence told Aaron more than resistance ever could. But even as authority shifted, something felt wrong. The timing, the placement. Carl Benton wasn't chosen randomly. He drove the same route every morning, at the same time. Visibility mattered. This disappearance was meant to be noticed, and whoever planned it knew escalation didn't require violence, just inconvenience. Mara pulled Aaron aside. "This isn't about victims anymore," she said softly. "It's about participation." Aaron nodded. The town was being forced to engage, to feel consequences in real time, and still, no face, no name, no motive they could pin down. Only intent. That afternoon, Dana requested a private briefing. No press, no town officials, just facts. Aaron laid everything out. The old cases, the notebook, the messages, the psychological pattern. Dana listened without interrupting. When he finished, she leaned back. "You're describing a long-term behavioral intervention," she said. Mara raised an eyebrow. "That's one way to say it," she replied. Dana nodded slowly. "But here's the problem," she added. "Intent without identity won't hold in court." Aaron's jaw tightened. "This isn't about court yet," he said. Dana met his eyes. "It will be," she replied. "And when it is, this collapses if you can't name a person." Aaron didn't respond, because naming a person felt less important than understanding the design. That night, another disappearance didn't happen. That was worse, because absence of escalation meant anticipation. Aaron drove through Maple Creek alone. No sirens, no calls. Just streets holding their breath. He stopped at the park. The bench was gone now. Removed. As if the town thought removing symbols removed meaning. He laughed once, quietly. It sounded wrong in the cold. At home, he found another envelope. He found another. This one inside his mailbox. No stamp, no return address. Inside, a single sentence typed cleanly. "You're finally making them uncomfortable." Aaron closed his eyes. This wasn't taunting. It was feedback. Mara's words returned. "They're watching your thinking." Aaron realized something then. The messages didn't arrive when he made progress. They arrived when the town felt pressure. This wasn't personal. It was strategic. The next morning, Leonard Shaw was found unconscious in his living room. No forced entry, no struggle, just collapsed. At the hospital, doctors found nothing definitive. Dehydration, stress, fear. Shaw came to briefly. Aaron leaned close. "Did someone visit you?" Aaron asked. Shaw's eyes flicked toward the door, then back. "Not a person," he whispered. Aaron frowned. "What do you mean?" Shaw swallowed. "I heard the bell," he said. "The church bell." Mara inhaled sharply. Shaw's voice shook. "Same sound I heard years ago, right before I stopped asking questions." Aaron felt cold settle into his spine. The bell again. Not coincidence, conditioning. That afternoon, the church hall keys went missing. Not stolen, misplaced. The log showed they'd been signed out by someone who hadn't been there in years. The name wasn't unfamiliar, but it wasn't central either, just present. Aaron stared at the log. Another example of access. Another example of trust extended without thought. Tyler Grady drew something at school, a teacher called Mara. The drawing showed a row of doors, each labeled with a word. Wait later, not here, quiet, safe at the end of the hallway, a door labeled now. Tyler had colored that one red. Mara showed the drawing to Aaron. This isn't imagination, she said. This is instruction. Aaron nodded. Whoever was behind this had turned fear into curriculum. By evening, Maple Creek reached a breaking point. A town hall meeting erupted into shouting. People demanded answers. Accused officials. Accused each other. The mayor called for calm. No one listened. Aaron stood at the back, watching. This wasn't chaos. This was delayed reaction. Exactly as designed. Mara leaned close. This is the final phase before revelation, she said. Aaron swallowed. You're saying the truth comes next. Mara nodded. Not because they want it, she said, but because pressure demands it. Aaron felt his pulse slow. This wasn't a hunt. It was a countdown. Late that night, Carl Benton's bus was found. Parked perfectly at the edge of town. Engine off, seats empty. On the driver's seat lay a folded note. Not a threat, not a confession. Just 4 words. This was preventable. Aaron stared at it for a long time, not because it answered anything, but because it was right. And whoever had written it knew the town would understand that now. Back at the station, Aaron closed the evidence locker. Section 5 wasn't about clues anymore, it was about weight, and Maple Creek was finally starting to feel it. Not all at once, but enough. Enough to make denial uncomfortable, enough to make silence costly, enough to make the next phase inevitable. Aaron looked at Mara. Whatever comes next, he said quietly, it won't be quiet. Mara nodded. And it won't be gentle. Aaron didn't look away, because he knew the hardest part was still ahead, not catching someone, but surviving what the truth would do to the town once it was spoken. Dangerous assumption changes the direction of the entire crime investigation. The town wanted a face. That was the mistake. Fear, when stretched too long, stops asking why, and starts demanding who. Maple Creek had reached that point. Aaron Cole felt it the moment he walked into the station the morning after the bus was found. People weren't asking about patterns anymore. They were asking about suspects. And that shift was exactly what worried him. Dana Pike stood at the center table, sleeves rolled up, voice clipped and efficient. We have movement, she said, enough to act. Aaron didn't respond immediately. Mara leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching reactions instead of notes. Dana slid a folder across the table. Name, she said. Finally. Brooks leaned forward. Aaron stayed still. Who? Brooks asked. Dana opened the folder. The name inside was familiar. Not central, not obvious, but present. Someone who appeared in logs, in schedules, in access lists. Someone convenient. Aaron felt a slow, sinking resistance in his chest. This is too fast, he said. Dana met his eyes. It's overdue, she replied. The suspect wasn't violent. That was part of the appeal. No record, no history, no reputation, just proximity, access, opportunity. Someone who fit cleanly into the narrative the town wanted. A quiet explanation for a quiet horror. Mara spoke for the first time. "You're filling the silence with certainty," she said. Dana didn't look at her. "We're filling it with control," Dana replied. Aaron felt the weight of that word. Control. The same word Mara had used weeks ago, but this time, it didn't feel earned. They brought the suspect in by afternoon, not arrested. Voluntary. The interview room felt smaller than usual. The suspect sat calmly, hands folded, eyes alert but not afraid. Aaron watched posture, breathing, stillness. This wasn't panic, it wasn't guilt. It was attention. Dana started. "Do you understand why you're here?" The suspect nodded once. "Yes." Aaron noted the absence of defensiveness. People wrongly accused usually protested. This person didn't. Dana continued, "You've had access to several locations connected to the disappearances." "Yes," the suspect said calmly. "Why?" "I live here," they replied. "I help where I'm needed." Mara's eyes narrowed slightly. That sentence wasn't incriminating, but it was revealing. Aaron leaned forward. "Did you know Emily Carter?" A pause. "Yes," the suspect said. "Not well." "Did you speak to her the night she disappeared?" Another pause. "No." Too clean. Dana pressed harder. "You've signed out keys to the church hall multiple times." "Yes." "For what purpose?" "Community events," the suspect replied. Mara shifted. "Do you believe this town ignores problems?" she asked suddenly. Dana shot her a look, but the question had already landed. The suspect tilted their head slightly. "I believe," they said carefully, "that people here prefer comfort to conflict." Aaron's chest tightened. That answer wasn't defensive, it was philosophical. Dana leaned in. "Are you suggesting the town deserved what happened?" The suspect met her gaze. "I'm suggesting the town didn't listen," they said. Silence fell. Not the heavy kind, the dangerous kind. Dana closed the folder. "We have enough," she said. Aaron looked at her sharply. "No, we don't." Dana's jaw tightened. "We have access, timing, opportunity, ideology." Mara stepped forward. "We also have a narrative you're forcing into place," she said. "And narratives break when reality pushes back." Dana ignored her. She turned to Aaron. "This ends now," Dana said. "For the town." Aaron felt a cold clarity settle. This wasn't about truth. This was about relief. Some the arrest wasn't announced, but it leaked. Of course it did. By evening, Maple Creek exhaled. People smiled again. Shops stayed open, porch lights went off. The town relaxed. Aaron watched it happen with unease twisting in his stomach. Mara noticed. "This is false peace," she said quietly. Aaron nodded. "They think it's over. And whoever's actually responsible," Mara added, "knows it isn't." That night, Aaron received no messages, no emails, no notes, nothing. That absence was louder than anything before. He sat in his car outside his house long after turning off the engine. This silence didn't feel like retreat. It felt like adjustment. And the next morning, Tyler Grady refused to go to school. His mother called Mara in tears. "He says the lesson isn't finished," she whispered. Aaron arrived minutes later. Tyler sat on the floor, back against the wall, arms wrapped around his knees. "They think they're safe now," he murmured. Aaron crouched. "Who thinks that?" he asked gently. Tyler didn't look up. "Everyone," he said, "but safety that comes too early disappears." Mara closed her eyes. That sentence cut too close. At the station, Dana pushed paperwork. Charges drafted, statements prepared. The chief looked relieved for the first time in weeks. "This will calm things down," he said. Aaron didn't answer. He watched the clock instead. Every minute without a new incident felt wrong. Too easy. That afternoon, Leonard Shaw died. Not violently. In his sleep. Heart failure. That was the report, but Aaron knew better. Not because there was evidence, because timing mattered. Shaw had lived with fear for years. Fear didn't kill him. Relief did. Mara stood beside Aaron at the hospital. "He thought it was over," she whispered. Aaron nodded. "And someone wanted him to think that." That night, the church bell rang again. Once. No schedule, no service. Just a single sound cutting through the dark. Aaron stood on his porch, listening. This time, he didn't feel watched. He felt corrected. In his mailbox the next morning, a final envelope waited. Inside was a single sentence. Typed, clean. Wrong answers feel peaceful. Right ones don't. Aaron folded the paper slowly. Mara read it over his shoulder. "They want us to doubt this arrest," she said. Aaron's voice was low. "They want us to understand it was never about a person." Mara nodded. "False certainty," she said. Aaron stared at the street. People walking, laughing, living. Maple Creek believed it had been saved, and that belief was the most dangerous assumption of all. The peace didn't last a full day. It never does when it's built on the wrong answer. By noon, Maple Creek had begun correcting itself, not openly, quietly, like a body rejecting a transplant. The first sign was procedural. Dana Pike received a call from the county lab. Not urgent, not alarming, just inconvenient. The kind of call that doesn't stop momentum but slows it enough to make people uncomfortable. She stood in Aaron's office with the phone pressed to her ear, jaw tightening. "Yes," she said. "I understand." She hung up and didn't speak immediately. Mara watched her. Aaron waited. Dana finally exhaled. "Timeline discrepancy," she said. Aaron didn't ask for details. He didn't need to. False certainty always cracked at the edges first. The discrepancy wasn't dramatic. No smoking gun. Just something that didn't line up the way it should. The suspect's phone pinged a tower 20 minutes earlier than expected. Not impossible, but inconvenient. Dana tried to brush it off. "Phones glitch," she said. Mara didn't argue. She just asked, "Why do glitches always show up after arrests?" Dana didn't answer. By afternoon, the town started asking different questions. Not who did it, but why does this feel unfinished? A woman stopped Aaron outside the station. "I don't feel safer," she said quietly. "I feel distracted." That word stayed with him. Distracted. As if relief had been handed to the town like a toy. And now people were realizing it didn't actually protect anything. The suspect asked to speak again, not to confess, not to bargain, to clarify. Aaron and Dana entered the room together. The suspect looked calmer than before. That was wrong. "I want to understand something," the suspect said evenly. "You're done asking questions?" Dana folded her arms. "We have enough." The suspect nodded slowly. "Enough for you," they said. "Or enough for the truth?" Dana stiffened. Aaron felt a cold tension slide into place. The suspect continued. "You wanted a face," they said. "You needed one." Mara, watching through the glass, felt something tighten in her chest. This wasn't defiance. It was observation. Aaron leaned forward. "Are you saying we're wrong?" he asked. The suspect met his gaze. "I'm saying you stopped listening," they replied. Dana slammed a hand on the table. "That's enough." The suspect didn't flinch. "You arrested relief," they said calmly, "not responsibility." Silence filled the room. Aaron's heartbeat slowed. Because the sentence didn't incriminate, it redirected. That night, the first consequence landed. Not violent, not dramatic, just personal. A woman named Marcy Hill collapsed at home. Heart attack. She survived, barely. At the hospital, she clutched her husband's hand and whispered something that made him call Aaron. "She said she should have spoken up years ago," the husband said, voice shaking. "She said she ignored something at the church." Aaron closed his eyes. Relief was triggering memory, and memory was triggering guilt, exactly as designed. Mara stood beside Aaron in the hallway. "This is the danger phase," she said. "What kind?" he asked. "Delayed honesty," Mara replied. "When people start remembering all at once." Aaron swallowed, because mass remembering was chaos, and chaos was unpredictable. By the next morning, Dana had lost control of the narrative. The suspect's lawyer filed a motion citing procedural haste. The timeline discrepancy grew, not into proof, into doubt. And doubt, once introduced, spread faster than fear. The Iota town noticed. The town always notices when certainty wavers. At the school, Tyler Grady refused to speak, not even to Mara. He sat at his desk, staring at his drawing of doors. The red one labeled "Now" had been shaded darker. A teacher whispered to Mara, "He keeps saying the quiet is lying." Mara felt a chill. Quiet wasn't safety, it was postponement. At noon, the church bell rang twice. Not once, twice. People froze in the street. 2 rings meant nothing officially, but emotionally, it meant escalation. Aaron stood outside the station, counting the seconds between the sounds. The spacing was deliberate, measured. This wasn't panic, this was pacing. Dana confronted Aaron in private. "You're undermining the arrest," she snapped. Aaron met her gaze calmly. "I'm observing reality," he said. Dana's voice lowered. "You want this to keep going?" Aaron shook his head. "I want it to stop for the right reason." Dana's eyes hardened. "And what if there isn't one?" she asked. Aaron answered quietly. "Then we're all complicit." Dana turned away. That evening, Leonard Shaw's house caught fire. Small. Contained. No injuries. The fire marshal called it electrical. Aaron didn't believe in coincidence anymore. Not like this. Shaw was gone, but his past wasn't. Someone was erasing echoes, or trying to. Mara noticed something else. The messages had stopped. No notes, no emails, no flyers. The silence returned, but this time it felt different, heavier, like a held breath that couldn't be released. "They're letting us talk," Mara said. "They're letting the town fill the space." Aaron nodded, because uncontrolled speech was more dangerous than messages ever could be. At a town forum that night, people began confessing, not crimes, neglect. "I didn't check the locks. I didn't report the noise. I didn't push when my neighbor disappeared." The mayor tried to calm the room. It didn't work. Guilt doesn't respond to reassurance. It demands resolution. Aaron watched the faces. Some looked relieved. Some looked terrified. One man left early, pale and shaking. Aaron followed. Outside, the man leaned against a wall, breathing hard. I should have said something, he whispered. Said what? Aaron asked gently. The man shook his head. I thought it was normal, he said. That's the worst part. Aaron felt the truth settle. Normal was the disguise. By midnight, Dana received the call she'd been dreading. The judge denied the warrant extension. The suspect would walk by morning, not because they were innocent, because certainty had been premature. Dana slammed her phone down. This is falling apart, she said. Aaron corrected her softly. No, he said. It's realigning. The release didn't make headlines, but it changed everything. Maple Creek didn't exhale this time. It inhaled. Sharp. Fear returned. Not of a person, of accountability. That night, Aaron found something under his windshield wiper again. Not a message, a photograph. The town hall meeting. People arguing, pointing, accusing, taken from above as if someone had been watching. On the back, one sentence. False peace always collapses first. Aaron folded the photo. Mara stood beside him. They didn't want the arrest, she said. They wanted the town to feel wrong. Aaron nodded. And now it does. And the final moment came quietly. No sirens, no calls. Just a realization that settled into Aaron's bones. This wasn't a hunt for a criminal. It was an exposure. And the exposure wasn't done yet. The bell rang again. Once. Not loud. Just enough. Aaron looked at Mara. We were never chasing the right question, he said. Mara met his eyes. No, she replied. We were waiting for the town to be ready to hear it. Aaron exhaled slowly. Because Section 6 wasn't about losing certainty. It was about understanding why certainty had been so tempting in the first place, and why the truth, when it finally arrived, would cost more than anyone wanted to pay. A town in chaos crosses the point of no return. The moment the suspect walked free, Maple Creek fractured. Not loudly, not immediately, but permanently. Order doesn't collapse with noise, it collapses with permission. And the town had just been given permission to doubt everything it thought it knew. Aaron Cole stood outside the station as the release paperwork was signed. No cameras, no crowd. Just a man walking out into cold air with his coat buttoned neatly, posture calm. Too calm. Dana Pike watched from the doorway, jaw clenched. This will follow us, she said. Aaron didn't respond. He was watching the town. People across the street had stopped pretending they weren't staring. No anger, no relief, just confusion. That confusion was dangerous. Because confusion looks for answers. And answers, when rushed, often land in the wrong hands. By evening, Maple Creek stopped waiting for officials. Neighborhood groups formed, unplanned, unapproved. People knocked on doors that hadn't been opened in years. Questions were asked without filters. Accusations were made without proof. Mara noticed it first. This is uncontrolled narrative, she said quietly. The town is becoming the investigator. Aaron felt his chest tighten. That's worse, he said. Because crowds didn't preserve nuance. They simplified, and simplification was how innocent people got hurt. A man named Thomas Reed was the first casualty. Not dead, but marked. Someone spray-painted the word listener on his garage door. No explanation, just accusation. Thomas called the police shaking. I don't even know what it means, he said. Aaron stood in the cold staring at the paint. Listener, not murderer, not accomplice. Listener, someone who knew and stayed quiet. Aaron felt the weight of it. This wasn't random. This was a vocabulary being introduced. That night, the church hall was broken into. No damage, no theft, just a message written in chalk on the floor. A circle. Inside it, a single word. When Mara stared at it. "They're forcing anticipation," she said. Aaron nodded. When was more powerful than who? Because when meant inevitability. By morning, the town was divided. Those who wanted to forget. Those who wanted to confess. Those who wanted someone to blame. Town hall meetings devolved into shouting. People stood up and admitted things they'd never said out loud. "I heard noises years ago. I was told not to push. I thought it was none of my business." Aaron listened from the back. This wasn't justice. It was rupture. And ruptures didn't heal cleanly. Tyler Grady stopped drawing doors. That worried Mara more than anything else. He sat in class, staring at nothing. When she asked him what he was thinking about, he whispered, "They're choosing now." "Who is they?" Mara asked gently. Tyler shook his head. "It doesn't matter anymore," he said. "Now matters." Mara felt cold spread through her spine. That afternoon, Dana confronted Aaron. "You need to shut this down," she said sharply. "People are spiraling." Aaron met her gaze. "You can't shut down guilt," he said. "You can only redirect it." Dana's voice lowered. "And who do you think they'll redirect it toward?" Aaron didn't answer, because he already knew. Toward anyone who seemed too calm, too quiet, too familiar. The diner closed early. Hank Mercer posted a handwritten sign, "Closed until further notice." Aaron drove by slowly. The lights were off. The place that had once been warm now looked hollow. Another symbol erased, another silence created, Mara noticed. "They're removing anchors," she said. "Places where memory gathered." Aaron nodded, and memory without anchors floated dangerously. The irreversible step came without warning. A crowd gathered outside the church after dark. No leader, no plan, just momentum. Someone shouted that the hall should be opened. Someone else shouted that keys had been hidden before. The door was forced. Wood cracked, glass shattered. Aaron arrived too late to stop it. He stood at the edge of the crowd watching flashlights sweep the interior. People searched desperately, not for evidence, for absolution. Inside, someone found an old storage cabinet, unlocked. Inside were boxes, old flyers, meeting notes, fundraiser lists. Nothing criminal, nothing dramatic, but names, dates, patterns people could interpret however they wanted. That was the danger. Dana pushed through the crowd. "This is over," she shouted. No one listened, because once authority hesitates long enough, it becomes optional. Mara grabbed Aaron's arm. "This is the line," she said. "Once crossed, it can't be uncrossed." Aaron nodded. The town had crossed it. They'd decided truth was something they could excavate themselves. Without context, without restraint, without care. At that night, a man was hospitalized, beaten, no charges, no witnesses willing to speak. The rumor was that he knew something. What he knew didn't matter. What people believed mattered more. Aaron stood in the hospital hallway feeling sick. This wasn't justice. This was contagion. The bell rang again, 3 times, not together, spaced, deliberate. Each ring felt like a punctuation mark. Aaron realized something then. The person behind this wasn't just exposing the town. They were testing it. Testing how far it would go once control was removed. Testing whether Maple Creek would choose accountability or chaos. At home, Aaron sat alone in the dark. No messages arrived, no instructions, no corrections. That absence felt intentional. Mara's voice echoed in his mind, controlled chaos. Whoever was doing this had stepped back, not finished, but letting the town reveal itself. And what it was, revealing, wasn't good. Aaron leaned forward, elbows on his knees. For the first time, he wondered if stopping this was even possible anymore. Because even if the truth came out tomorrow, the damage was already done. Trust wasn't just broken, it had been weaponized. He whispered into the empty room. This isn't what justice looks like. The house didn't answer. But somewhere in Maple Creek, someone already knew that and was counting on it. By morning, Maple Creek had learned something it couldn't unlearn. Fear didn't need permission anymore. It had been legitimized. The vandalism spread first, not chaotic, targeted. Names written on sidewalks in chalk, doors marked with symbols no one claimed to recognize. Notes slipped under windshields that didn't accuse but implied. Listener silent late words chosen carefully. Words that turned behavior into evidence. Aaron drove through town watching people scrub chalk from concrete while glancing over their shoulders, afraid that erasing it would look like denial. Fear had become a language, and everyone was suddenly fluent. Mara met Aaron outside the school. Parents argued with administrators. Children cried. Classes were dismissed early, not officially but practically. No one wanted their kids out of sight. This is no longer about crimes, Mara said quietly. It's about trust collapse. Aaron nodded. And trust doesn't rebuild under pressure. Mara's eyes darkened. No, she said, it fractures. Tyler Grady didn't come home that afternoon. Not missing, absent. He left school and didn't return. His backpack was found near the playground fence. Phone inside, no messages, no calls, just absence again. Aaron arrived as his mother screamed his name into the cold air. Mara stood beside her, hands steady, voice calm. Tyler was found an hour later, sitting on the steps of the old courthouse, waiting. He didn't look frightened. That was the worst part. Aaron crouched in front of him. Tyler, he said softly, why are you here? Tyler looked up. They said this is where the town pretends things end, he replied. Mara inhaled sharply. Who said that? Aaron asked. Tyler shook his head. They didn't say who anymore, he whispered. They said when. Aaron felt the weight of it press down. Tyler continued, voice flat. They said the town crossed the line, he said. So now the town decides what happens next. Mara's jaw tightened. That's not how this works, she said gently. Tyler looked at her with unsettling calm. They said that too, he replied. That evening, Dana Pike filed an emergency motion. State oversight, mandatory curfew, controlled access points. Maple Creek bristled. Curfews implied danger, and danger implied failure. The mayor objected. Business owners protested. People demanded explanations that didn't exist yet. Aaron stood in the middle of it, feeling the ground shift under his feet. This was no longer containment. It was collapse management. The bell rang again, 4 times, not together, each ring spaced enough to reset attention. People stopped mid-sentence, mid-step, mid-argument. Aaron watched faces change, not fear, recognition. The sound meant something now, not symbolically. Conditioned. Mara whispered, they've trained the town. Aaron swallowed. Training took time. Years. This wasn't recent. That night, someone broke into the diner, not vandalized, rearranged. Tables moved into rows, chairs turned to face the kitchen. On the counter, a single handwritten card, "Pay attention, Hank." Mercer stood in the doorway, shaking. "I never hurt anyone," he kept repeating. Aaron believed him. That wasn't the point. The point was implication, and implication destroyed faster than proof. The first vigil-turned confrontation happened outside a private home. A woman accused of knowing too much. No evidence, just suspicion. Aaron arrived before it escalated. He stood between the crowd and the door. "This stops now," he said. A man shouted back, "Why? So we can keep pretending?" Aaron felt something crack inside him. Pretending. That word again. "You don't get justice by becoming the danger," Aaron said. Someone yelled, "Maybe danger is what makes people listen." Silence followed. Not agreement, consideration. That terrified him. Mara pulled Aaron aside. "They've turned morality into urgency," she said. "That's how ethics collapse." Aaron nodded. "And someone planned for this." Mara met his eyes. "Yes," she said, "and they're still ahead." By midnight, the curfew failed. People stayed out, not looting, talking, arguing, confessing, blaming. Aaron realized then what the irreversible step truly was. The town had accepted that normal no longer existed. Once that happened, everything became justifiable. A fire broke out near the edge of town. Small, contained, but symbolic. Another place erased, another anchor gone. The fire chief said it was accidental. No one believed him. Belief had moved on. Mara sat with Aaron in his living room after midnight. No lights, just the glow from the street outside. "This doesn't end with an arrest," she said quietly. Aaron stared at the floor. "I know. It ends with a truth that hurts everyone," Mara continued. Aaron nodded. "And someone decided pain was the only teacher left." Mara looked at him. "Do you agree?" Aaron didn't answer immediately, because the worst part was that he understood why someone might believe that. The final moment of Section 7 came quietly. A message appeared on the town's digital notice board. No hacking trace, no origin, just text. "You asked for answers, now prove you can handle them." Aaron read it once, then again. Mara exhaled slowly. "That's the line," she said. "After this, there's no turning back." Aaron closed his eyes. The town had crossed it already. This was just confirmation. Section 7 wasn't about chaos. It was about consequence. The town had ignored warnings long enough to believe silence was safety. Now silence had been replaced by noise, and noise didn't protect anyone. As Aaron stood at the window watching patrol lights flash through falling snow, he understood something with brutal clarity. The final revelation wouldn't just expose a killer, it would expose Maple Creek. And once that truth was spoken, nothing would ever be quiet again. A haunting calm settles over the town as the truth draws closer. The night after the message appeared, Maple Creek went quiet. Not the quiet of denial, not the quiet of fear. A different kind, measured, observant, almost respectful. As if the town had finally understood that noise had failed, and silence was now waiting for something else. Aaron Cole noticed it first thing in the morning. No crowds, no shouting, no arguments spilling into the street. People walked slower, spoke less, looked at each other longer than usual. The chaos of the last days hadn't disappeared. It had condensed. And condensed pressure was always more dangerous than panic. The curfew remained officially in place. Unofficially, no one tested it. They didn't need to. Something in the air told them staying inside wasn't about obedience anymore. It was about reflection. Aaron stood at the window of the station watching snow drift down in clean, uninterrupted lines. Snow didn't erase evidence anymore. Now it highlighted it. Every footprint stood out. Every movement felt intentional. Dana Pike approached quietly. No clipboard, no urgency, just presence. "This is the part that scares me," she said. Aaron didn't turn. "Why?" he asked. Dana folded her arms. "Because this is when people think they're ready," she replied. Aaron nodded slowly. Readiness was often just confidence without understanding. Mara arrived later than usual. Her face looked tired, not exhausted, focused. "They're listening now," she said softly. "To what?" Aaron asked. Mara shook her head. "To themselves." Aaron exhaled. That was never a controlled process. The bell did not ring that day. That absence was deliberate. People noticed. They kept waiting for it. Waiting had become ritual. The town had been trained to anticipate, and anticipation was a lever. Tyler Grady stayed home from school, not afraid, quiet. Mara visited him alone this time. He sat at the kitchen table drawing again, not doors, lines intersecting, overlapping. She watched without interrupting. After a while, he spoke. "They stopped teaching," he said. Mara kept her voice calm. "Who stopped teaching?" Tyler shrugged. "The thing," he said. "It thinks the town can finish the lesson by itself." Mara felt a chill. That wasn't escalation, that was withdrawal. At the church, Pastor Reynolds unlocked the hall voluntarily. No subpoena, no pressure. He stood in the doorway while Aaron and Mara walked through. "I should have opened this years ago," he said quietly. Aaron didn't answer. The room felt different now, not staged, not symbolic, just honest. Empty chairs, folded tables, a place that had absorbed too much without speaking. In the diner, Hank Mercer returned, not to reopen, to clean. He wiped counters slowly, methodically. Aaron watched from a booth. "I thought silence was kindness," Hank said without looking up. Aaron didn't respond. Hank continued. "I thought if nobody complained, nobody was hurt." He stopped wiping. "But that's not how it works, is it?" Aaron met his eyes. "No," he said quietly. Hank nodded once. That was enough. At the courthouse, old files were brought upstairs, not hidden anymore, placed openly on tables. Anyone could see them, names, dates, patterns. The town wasn't shouting now, it was reading. And reading was dangerous because it connected things people had worked hard to keep separate. Dana pulled Aaron aside. "We're getting calls," she said. "People remembering things." Aaron nodded. "Memories don't come back politely," he said. Dana hesitated. What if the truth causes more damage than the silence did? Aaron thought about that, then said, "Silence already did its damage. This is just the bill." Dana didn't argue. She knew he was right. That afternoon, a woman walked into the station, older, shaking. She asked for Aaron by name. "I never reported it," she whispered when they sat. "What?" Aaron asked. "The knock," she said. "Years ago, late night. I looked through the window and saw nothing, so I went back to bed." Her hands twisted together. "In the morning, my neighbor was gone." Aaron closed his eyes briefly. "Why didn't you come forward?" he asked gently. She looked up, tears spilling. "Because nothing happened to me," she said. "And I thought that meant it wasn't important." Aaron felt the weight settle again. Nothing happening had been the warning. The town's energy shifted by evening, not accusatory, somber. People gathered in small groups, talked quietly, shared memories they'd buried. The danger wasn't violence now, it was collapse under the weight of realization. Mara stood beside Aaron near the park. The bench had been replaced. New, clean, unmarked. "That feels wrong," Aaron said. Mara nodded. "Replacing symbols doesn't replace meaning," she replied. Aaron stared at it. "Someone wants this remembered," he said. "Yes," Mara agreed, "and someone else wants it finished." That night, Aaron found the notebook open on his desk. He hadn't left it that way. The page turned wasn't random. It showed a date. 3 days from now, no notes. Just a mark in the margin, not a warning. A reminder. Aaron didn't need to ask what it meant. Section 8 wasn't about fear anymore, it was about timing. The town slept uneasily, not because it was scared, because it was aware. And awareness was heavy. As snow fell quietly across Maple Creek, Aaron understood something with unsettling clarity. The truth wasn't coming like an explosion, it was coming like a confession, slow, unavoidable. And when it arrived, it would not belong to the person who revealed it. It would belong to everyone who had waited too long to hear it. The second day of quiet felt heavier than the first. Silence, Aaron realized, wasn't empty anymore. It was loaded. People didn't greet each other the way they used to. They nodded, held eye contact for a fraction too long, as if each face carried a question that didn't need to be spoken. Did you know? Or worse, did you choose not to? At the station, the phones rang less. When they did, the calls weren't urgent. They were confessional. "I remembered something," people said. "I didn't think it mattered. I thought someone else would handle it." Aaron listened. He didn't interrupt, because interruption was another kind of denial. Mara cataloged the calls quietly. Not names, patterns, late-night noises, doors found ajar, voices heard through walls, always followed by the same explanation. "I convinced myself it was nothing." Mara looked up after the 10th call. "That sentence is the spine of this town," she said. Aaron nodded. "And now it's breaking." Dana Pike watched the board change. No longer lines pointing toward suspects. Now lines pointed backward, to moments, choices, non-actions. "This is what accountability looks like," Dana said quietly. Aaron didn't answer. Accountability wasn't neat. It was disorienting. At the school, counselors replaced classes. Children drew less, talked more. Not about fear, about questions. Why didn't anyone help? Why did people stop talking? Why did the bell matter? Adults struggled to answer, because adults were still answering themselves. Tyler Grady asked to speak with Aaron, alone. They sat in the courthouse hallway. Cold stone, high ceilings, a place built to make voices echo. "They're almost done," Tyler said. Aaron didn't ask who. He knew. "Done with what?" he asked gently anyway. Tyler stared ahead. "Waiting," he said. "They waited for the town to hear itself." Aaron's throat tightened. "Are you scared?" he asked. Tyler shook his head. "I was," he said, "but now I think scared was the warning." Aaron felt that land. Fear had been the signal, not the danger. The bell remained silent. No rings, no reminders. Its absence felt intentional. People checked the tower, as if expecting to find someone there. No one ever did. That was the point. At the church hall, volunteers gathered willingly. No accusations, no shouting. Just people opening boxes, sorting old papers, not for evidence, for acknowledgement. Pastor Reynolds stood with his hands clasped. I thought forgiveness came from forgetting, he said quietly. Mara met his gaze. Forgiveness comes from remembering responsibly, she replied. He nodded, slowly. At the diner, Hank Mercer cooked again, not for customers, for people who stayed late reading files at the courthouse. He set plates down without speaking. Food grounded people. It slowed them, reminded them they were human before they were guilty. That night, Aaron drove through Maple Creek without urgency. No sirens, no radio chatter, just tires cutting softly through fresh snow. The town looked unchanged, but it wasn't. It felt like a place holding a breath it knew it couldn't keep. At home, Aaron opened the notebook again, not to search for answers, to feel the weight of patience. Whoever had written it hadn't rushed. They'd waited years, watched seasons pass, watched people grow comfortable, watched warnings dissolve into routine. That kind of waiting wasn't anger. It was conviction. Mara arrived just before midnight. She didn't knock. Aaron hadn't locked the door. Neither of them commented on that. "They're stepping back," she said. Aaron nodded. "They've already set the last piece." Mara glanced at the open notebook. "The date?" she asked. "Yes," Aaron replied. "Do you know what happens then?" Mara asked. Aaron closed the notebook gently. "I know what doesn't," he said. "What?" Silence. The next morning, the town woke early. Not because of fear, because of readiness. People stood in lines outside the courthouse, not protesting, waiting. For what, they couldn't say. But waiting had replaced avoidance, and that alone changed everything. Dana joined Aaron on the courthouse steps. "If this explodes," she said quietly, "there's no controlling it." Aaron looked out at the crowd. "I don't think it's meant to explode," he said. "I think it's meant to land." Dana frowned. "Land how?" Aaron swallowed. "Like truth usually does," he replied. "On everyone at once." Tyler's drawing from earlier weeks was pinned on the board now. The doors, the labels. The red one marked "Now." Mara stared at it. "He wasn't predicting," she said. "He was documenting." Aaron nodded. This was always about timing. That afternoon, a final memory surfaced. A woman approached Aaron quietly. She didn't cry. Didn't shake. "I used to work nights," she said. "At the old fundraiser events." Aaron listened. "I heard someone crying once," she continued. "I told myself it was stress or laughter." She met his eyes. It was neither. Aaron felt the truth settle deeper. No names, no accusations, just acknowledgement. As night fell, Maple Creek didn't gather in the park. Didn't wait for a bell. Didn't look for instructions. They stayed where they were, at home, together, thinking. The calm wasn't peace. It was readiness. Aaron stood at his window watching snow fall again. Snow no longer erased. It outlined. He understood now why the final revelation hadn't come yet. Because revelation without readiness was noise, and noise had already failed. And Section 8 wasn't about waiting for truth. It was about preparing to carry it. Because when the truth arrived, it would not belong to the one who spoke it. It would belong to every person who had chosen comfort over warning, and once spoken, there would be no one hearing it. The truth begins to make emotional sense before it can be spoken. The night before the date marked in the notebook felt different, not tense, not fearful, intentional. Maple Creek didn't sleep early. Lights stayed on behind curtains. People sat at tables longer than usual. Conversations didn't drift. They circled, as if everyone was approaching the same thought from different directions, and no one wanted to be the first to say it out loud. Aaron Cole sat alone in the station, not because he had to, but because leaving felt wrong. The building was quiet, no phones ringing, no radios crackling. Just the hum of old lights and the slow ticking of a clock that sounded louder than it ever had. Time was being counted now. Not measured, counted. Mara arrived without her coat. She set it down carefully like she didn't want to disturb the air. "You feel it too," she said. Aaron nodded. "It's not fear," he replied. "It's recognition." Mara sat across from him. "That's worse," she said softly. Recognition meant responsibility. They didn't look at the board. They didn't need to. The pieces were no longer intellectual, they were emotional. Patterns didn't just connect cases anymore, they connected people, choices, moments of hesitation that had seemed harmless until they stacked. Dana Pike joined them later. No clipboard, no authority in her posture, just fatigue. "I ran the timeline again," she said. "Not for proof, for understanding." Aaron looked up. "And?" Dana hesitated. "It doesn't point to a person," she said. "It points to moments where action was delayed." Mara exhaled slowly. "That's what I was afraid of," she said. Dana frowned. "Afraid?" Mara met her eyes. "Because you can arrest a person," she replied, "but you can't arrest a habit." Outside, snow began to fall again. Lighter than before, not enough to cover, just enough to outline. Aaron stood by the window watching flakes collect on the streetlights. "For years," he said quietly, "we treated absence like neutrality." Mara nodded. "When absence is actually a choice," she said. Dana leaned back. "And choices have consequences," she added. None of them spoke after that, because saying it didn't make it easier. At midnight, the church hall lights came on, not suddenly, gradually, as if someone had decided it was time to be seen. People noticed. They gathered, not summoned but drawn. No bell rang, no message appeared, just light. And light, after all this darkness, felt like permission. Aaron arrived before the crowd fully formed. He stood in the doorway again like he had weeks ago, but this time the room didn't feel staged. It felt ready. People filled the space quietly, no shouting, no accusations, just presence. Mara stood beside him. "This isn't confrontation," she said. Aaron nodded. "It's acknowledgement." A woman stepped forward, the same one who had come to the station earlier. Her voice didn't shake now. "I ignored something once," she said, "and because I ignored it, someone disappeared. No names, no blame, just truth." Another person spoke, then another, each admission small, but together, heavy. Dana watched, jaw tight. "This would never hold in court," she whispered. Aaron didn't look away. "I know," he said. "But that's not what this is." Mara added quietly. "This is the town finally listening to itself." Tyler Grady stood at the back. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His presence was enough. Aaron noticed something then. Tyler wasn't watching the people, he was watching the room, as if confirming something had finally aligned. When the admission slowed, the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full. No one rushed to fill it. No one needed to. The truth wasn't being revealed yet, but it was being felt, and feeling came before understanding. Later outside, Dana spoke softly. "If this ends badly," she said, "history will say we failed." Aaron met her gaze. "History already said that," he replied. "We just didn't read it." Dana closed her eyes. Back at the station, Aaron opened the notebook again. The marked date was tomorrow. The margin note felt heavier now. Not threatening. Certain. Mara stood behind him. "Do you think they'll speak?" she asked. Aaron considered. "I don't think they need to," he said. "The town is doing it for them." Mara swallowed. "That doesn't make it safer." "No," Aaron agreed. "It makes it inevitable." As dawn approached, Maple Creek remained awake, not restless, prepared. People weren't asking who did this anymore. They were asking something harder. Why didn't we stop it sooner? That question had no single answer, and that was the most frightening part. Section 9 wasn't about discovery, it was about acceptance. The realization that the truth wasn't hidden behind a locked door. It had been standing in plain sight, waiting for someone to stop walking past it. Aaron leaned back in his chair, eyes closed. For the first time since Emily disappeared, he felt something close to clarity, not relief, understanding. And understanding, he knew, and would make the final revelation impossible to ignore. The hours before sunrise passed slowly. Not dragging, settling. Like sediment falling to the bottom of water once it had been disturbed long enough. Aaron Cole didn't try to sleep. He sat at his desk with the notebook closed in front of him, hands resting flat on the wood as if keeping it there required physical effort. The truth wasn't inside the pages anymore, it was everywhere else. In the town, in the silences between conversations, in the way people had begun choosing their words carefully, not to protect themselves, but to avoid lying. Mara stood near the window watching the sky lighten. "When people finally stop arguing," she said quietly, "it's not because they agree." Aaron didn't look up. "It's because they've run out of excuses," he replied. Mara nodded. Excuses had been Maple Creek's language for years. Now it spoke something else. Dana Pike paced once, then stopped. "I keep thinking about the first report," she said. "The very first one that started this." "Emily," Aaron said. Dana shook her head. "No," she replied. "The one before anyone called it a pattern." Aaron closed his eyes, because he knew exactly what she meant. The moment when ignoring still felt harmless. As the sun rose, people gathered again. Not at the church, not at the courthouse, at intersections, sidewalks, front steps, small, quiet groups. No leader, no demand, just proximity, witnessing. The town had shifted from asking questions to holding space for answers it wasn't sure it deserved. Tyler Grady walked with his parents that morning, not leading, not following, just present. When Aaron saw him across the street, Tyler met his eyes and nodded once. No words, no warning, just acknowledgement. That felt heavier than anything the boy had ever said. Mara leaned close to Aaron. "He's not afraid anymore," she whispered. Aaron nodded. "He understands," he said. "And that scares you," Mara replied. Aaron didn't deny it. Children weren't supposed to understand this kind of weight, but Tyler had been made to, by absence, by silence, by adults who mistook quiet for safety. At the station, the phone stopped ringing entirely. No confessions, no memories, no demands. That silence wasn't avoidance, it was saturation. Everyone who needed to speak had spoken. Everyone who needed to listen was listening. Aaron finally opened the notebook again, not searching, just confirming. The last marked date stared back at him. Today. No note, no explanation, no instruction. It didn't. One. Mara watched him carefully. "This isn't the end," she said. Aaron shook his head slowly. "No," he replied. "It's the moment before the end." Outside, the bell tower stood unmoving. The bell hadn't rung since the night before. That was deliberate. It wasn't needed anymore. The sound had already done its work. People no longer needed the cue. Dana received confirmation that all media had been kept away. No leaks, no premature conclusions. For once, the town wasn't performing, it was processing. "That might be the most dangerous thing," Dana said quietly. Aaron looked at her. "Why?" "Because once people process," she replied, "they decide what they can live with." Aaron felt that settle. The final truth wouldn't just expose a person, it would force a choice. By noon, the church hall filled again. Not with speeches, with listening. People sat, stood, waited. No one checked their phones, no one whispered. It felt like a collective holding of breath. Not for drama, for permission. Mara stood near the back. "This is the part where someone usually demands justice," she murmured. Aaron watched the room. "But no one is," he said. Mara nodded. "Because they already know what justice will cost," she replied. A man stood slowly, older, hands shaking. "I knew something once," he said, "and I convinced myself knowing wasn't the same as responsibility." His voice broke. "I was wrong." No one interrupted. No one corrected him. He sat down. The truth didn't need applause. Aaron felt something shift inside his chest, not closure, alignment. Everything that had felt disconnected now pointed in the same emotional direction, not toward a person, toward a failure shared across time. Mara leaned closer. "This is why the identity didn't matter," she whispered. "The town needed to see itself first." Aaron nodded. "And now," Mara hesitated. "Now the reveal won't feel like a shock," she said. "It will feel like confirmation." Aaron closed his eyes. That was worse. Shocks fade. Confirmations linger. As the afternoon light changed, Aaron noticed the absence of fear. People weren't trembling, they weren't angry, they were resigned, not defeated, aware. That awareness was irreversible. Tyler Grady finally spoke aloud. Not loudly, just enough. "They said this part would hurt the least," he said. Mara turned toward him gently. "Who said that?" Tyler looked around the room. "The truth," he replied. Aaron felt his throat tighten, because that made sense. Evening. The town was ready, not eager, prepared to hear something that couldn't be unheard, prepared to lose the comfort of uncertainty, prepared to carry what came next. Aaron stood alone again as night fell, the notebook closed, the board unchanged. Nothing left to arrange, nothing left to stall. He realized something then. The reason the truth hadn't been spoken yet wasn't strategy. It was mercy. Because once spoken, no one would be able to say they didn't know. Amara joined him. "Tomorrow," she said quietly. Aaron nodded. "Tomorrow," he echoed. They stood together without speaking. The silence wasn't heavy now. It was steady, like ground that had finally stopped shifting. Section 9 wasn't about revelation. It was about readiness. The understanding that the truth wasn't hidden because it was clever. It was hidden because people weren't ready to see themselves reflected in it. Now they were. And when the final words were spoken, they would not sound like an accusation. They would sound like recognition. To the last warning, before the fall, the morning arrived without ceremony. No bell, no crowd, no weather dramatic enough to match what was about to end. Snow rested lightly on Maple Creek, thin enough to show everything beneath it. For the first time, nothing was hidden. Aaron Cole stood alone in the church hall before anyone else arrived. The chairs were arranged in a circle now, not facing a stage, facing each other. That hadn't been his idea, it had simply happened. He took a breath that felt heavier than any he'd taken in weeks. Not because he was afraid of what he was about to say, because once he said it, there would be no place left for anyone to hide. People entered, quietly, not summoned, drawn. Mara stood near the wall. Dana Pike took a seat among the townspeople instead of the front. That mattered. Tyler Grady sat with his parents, feet not touching the floor, hands folded, calm in a way that didn't belong to a child. The room filled. No one spoke. They didn't need to. Aaron stepped forward. No podium, no microphone, just a man standing where the truth finally belonged. "I'm not here to accuse anyone," he said quietly. That surprised them. "I'm here to tell you what actually happened," he continued, "and why it took so long for it to stop." He paused, letting the silence do what it needed to do. Emily Carter didn't make a mistake the night she disappeared, Aaron said. She recognized one. A murmur moved through the room. Not denial, recognition. She realized that what happened to her wasn't new, Aaron continued. It was repeating. He took a breath. For over 20 years, Maple Creek lost people quietly. Phones left behind, doors locked, storms blamed. And every time, he said, we told ourselves the same story. He looked around. That nothing violent had happened. That nothing wrong had happened. Mara closed her eyes, because this was the sentence that mattered. But violence doesn't always announce itself, Aaron said. Sometimes it waits for permission. He turned slightly. Permission looks like silence, like hesitation, like deciding something isn't urgent because it didn't happen to you. A woman began to cry softly. No one turned. They let her. The person responsible for what happened here, Aaron said, did not begin as a killer. A sharp intake of breath moved through the room. They began as a witness, he continued, a listener. Someone who saw what happened when concerns were dismissed and watched how often nothing followed. He let that sit. Years ago, Aaron said, a young woman disappeared after reporting something that made her uncomfortable. No name, they all knew. The report was filed, then minimized, then buried. He swallowed. Someone close to that moment learned something then. The room leaned in without realizing it. They learned that in Maple Creek, Aaron said. Being heard did not mean being protected. That person didn't plan revenge, he said. They planned proof. Dana Pike's jaw tightened. Mara didn't move. They documented, Aaron continued. They waited. They learned how long it took before anyone listened. He glanced at Tyler briefly. And they learned that fear speaks louder when it isn't violent. Disappearances weren't about punishment, Aaron said. They were about replication. A ripple moved through the room. Each case was constructed to mirror the town's habits, he said. Locked doors, phones left, no struggle. He raised his eyes, because that's what allowed earlier cases to be ignored. The chair in the community center, Aaron said quietly. The bell, the notes. He shook his head. Those weren't threats. They waited. They were reminders. Mara finally spoke. They were warnings, she said. Aaron nodded. Yes, he replied. Warnings we'd already been given and had already chosen not to hear. The person who did this, Aaron said, believed something very specific. He looked at the floor for a moment. That if the town felt the consequences of delay without the distraction of violence, it would finally understand its role. A man stood abruptly. You're saying this was our fault? He shouted. Aaron met his eyes. I'm saying it was our responsibility, he replied. Silence fell again. Not hostile, not defensive, honest. The final escalation wasn't death, Aaron said. It was certainty. He gestured gently. When we arrested the wrong person, the person responsible stepped back. Mara added softly, because false certainty was the last test. Aaron nodded, and when the town accepted that certainty too easily, he said, the lesson became unavoidable. Dana Pike stood slowly. Say it, she said quietly. Aaron took a breath. The person who orchestrated this, he said, was someone who had access, continuity, and patience. No name yet. Someone who stayed close enough to the town to understand it, but distant enough to see it clearly. He paused. They were never hiding. The realization moved through the room like cold. Aaron continued. They didn't want to disappear people forever, he said. They wanted the town to find itself before it found them. Mara spoke again. And now, she said, that's happened. Aaron finally said the name. Not loudly, not dramatically, just clearly. A name many of them recognized. Someone useful, someone reliable, someone forgettable in the safest way. The room reacted, not with shock, but with recognition. Because the truth didn't feel new, it felt confirmed. They confessed this morning, Aaron said quietly. Not to the acts, but to the reason. He lifted the notebook. They said they never wanted to become this, he continued. But that after years of watching warnings go unanswered, they believed the town needed to feel what delay actually cost. Mara's voice was steady. They believed pain was the last language left. Aaron nodded. And they were wrong, he said, but they were not alone in making that mistake. The room didn't erupt. No one rushed forward. No one screamed. Because blame didn't land on a single person. It spread, and everyone felt it. The cost, Aaron said, is not just the lives lost. He looked around. It's the knowledge that it didn't have to happen this way. Tears moved freely now, unashamed, unhidden. Tyler Grady stood, small, steady. They said the last warning was the fall, he said quietly. Aaron nodded. Yes, he replied, and we felt it. Aaron took a final breath. This case ends today, he said, but what it revealed doesn't. It looked at them. Maple Creek will be remembered for what it allowed, or for what it learned. No one clapped. They didn't need to. Later, as the town emptied out, Mara stood beside Aaron in the doorway. "You told the truth," she said. Aaron nodded. "And it hurt," he replied. Mara met his eyes. "That's how you know it mattered." Snow began falling again. Not enough to erase anything. Just enough to settle. Aaron watched it quietly. The town would never be the same. But it was awake now, and that, finally, was the point.